but we will bring it forward so we reach that level in 2027.
The answer from European capitals has been as resounding as it is clear. We are in an era of rearmament to respond to the short-term urgency to act and to support Ukraine, but also to address the long-term need to take on more responsibility for our own European security.
On Saturday, we also agreed a new £2.2 billion loan for Ukraine, backed not by the British taxpayer, but by the profits from frozen Russian assets. It is my pleasure to bring from His Majesty the King a letter. He sends his best wishes and his regards, of course, but he also asked me to bear this letter and bring it to you. So can I present the letter from the King to you?
Thank you very much. Am I supposed to read it right now?
Yeah, please do.
I will do.
I've got to tell him what your reaction is, so I need to know. I need to know.
He is a great gentleman. A great, great gentleman. He said he thinks the war's going to go on for a long time, and he better not be right. Well, I just think he should be more appreciative, because this country has stuck with them through thick and thin. We've given them much more than Europe, and Europe should have given more than us, because as you know, that's right there, that's the border.
What kind of diplomacy, JD, you are speaking about? What do you mean?
I'm talking about the kind of diplomacy that's going to end the destruction of your country.
Yes, but if you are not
Mr. President, with respect, I think it's disrespectful for you to come into the Oval Office and try to litigate this in front of the American media.
You're gambling with the lives of millions of people. You're gambling with World War III. You're gambling with World War III.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Good morning and welcome to Morning Glory. It's 3 minutes past 6. It is Friday, ladies and gentlemen, the 26th of February. Of September. What the hell am I talking about? We've reached the end of yet another incredible week in which all sorts of things have happened, right? Morgan McSweeney, the head of staff at Downing Street, is under yet more pressure to quit. Coming up to the daily conference that takes place every single day in Downing Street, they'll be having conversations about all manner of things, including should I stay in the job till we go to conference on Sunday in Liverpool? Should Andy Burnham be kiboshed, or should he be brought into the tent to stop him peeing into it so he can pee out of it instead? You know, should Mike Graham be allowed to keep complaining about Sadiq Khan and the terrible crime wave that's going on in London? Great big piece in the Mail Online today, for those of you who want to look at it, in which they use a rather nice picture of me coming out of a restaurant some weeks ago. I don't know where they got it from, but I was full of the joys of spring, and it was all I can say. Rafe Arnold-Mancour is here. He's going to help us with a few of the big stories on the front page this morning. But, of course, the big story this morning is all about digital ID, because Keir Starmer has decided, in his wisdom, he didn't need to have a referendum about it. He didn't need to ask the general public what they thought. He didn't really need to even introduce it as a debate in Parliament. But he thought it'd be a great idea to basically make everybody carry around digital ID so that it could be just like communist China. The Daily Mail this morning, I think, sums everything up. The economy is moribund. Socialism rules. Police come knocking if you say or think the wrong thing. Now, in an authoritarian new plan that will make Britain even more like East Germany, citizens will be forced to carry ID cards. And their headline says, "Show us your digital papers." The bottom line here seems to me that Keir Starmer has come up with another plan which he hasn't thought about. Another plan which hasn't been thought through. They say that it's going to be used to make sure that illegal workers can't get jobs. He says it's going to stop the small boats. He says that this is all about stopping migration and people coming here without the right to work and somehow working. Well, clearly there are so many holes in it, you can literally draw spaghetti through it. You know, there's nothing in this idea that makes any sense. It's been pushed by Tony Blair and Emmanuel Macron. That's all you need to know. And basically civil liberties groups are saying that it's the introduction of a papers, please society. It's very un-British. And it also means that if you haven't got a mobile phone, you'll probably be locked out of it. And if you haven't got a passport, you'll probably be locked out of it. So how is this going to work if you're an illegal alien, an illegal migrant without a passport? I'll ask you that question, and I certainly don't want a digital ID. People who are in favour of this stuff say, oh, but you've already got a digital ID, you've already got a passport, you've already got a driving licence. Yeah, but people don't ask me for it on a regular basis in order to gain entry to a theatre, or to gain entry to a bar, or to gain entry to a shop. This seems to be what Keir Starmer wants. I think it's a disgraceful, dystopian idea, and I think we've got to do everything we can to revolt against it, quite frankly. 0344 499 1000. Lots of other stories to get going on as well. Jaguar Land Rover is 1 week from collapse. We thought we might get Steve Berry on to ask him how that's all going up there at Jaguar Land Rover. They haven't made a car for about 2 months. Nobody's bought one for about 3 months. Apart from that, it's all going really, really well. Also, we've got a fairly good Migrant of the Day story. A migrant child who claimed to be 15 years old turned out to be 23. And it was a really, really top-level investigation that discovered it. It was on his Instagram page that he was 23, had his date of birth on it. 0344 499 1000. This is Morning Glory. Let's get it on. Quite a few pictures of old Sarkozy on the front pages as well. French President, what's his first name? What is his first name? Nicolas Sarkozy, pictured with Carla Bruni, who apparently the supermodel wife. She may be going to prison apparently as well. He was found guilty of trying to get 500,000 euros from Colonel Gaddafi. Brilliant. Rafe, very good morning to you. So many great stories to talk about this morning. I guess we must start with digital ID, must we not?
Yes, once again more proof that Keir Starmer is trying to finish the job started by Tony Blair.
Yes.
This is basically Blairism 2.0 with so many of the policies that we're seeing from Starmer. And coincidentally, this has come out just literally a few days after Tony Blair's institute advocated for digital IDs. Is there a connection there? I'll leave you to
well, it seems as though everything from Peter Mandelson being appointed US ambassador to Morgan McSweeney kind of pulling the strings in Downing Street to Andy Burnham somehow making a comeback. You know, everything seems to be being played through a Tony Blair playbook, doesn't it?
His shadow looms large over the party still after all these years. But yeah, you're absolutely right. I mean, this is what whenever there's a crisis in Britain, they try to bring in digital ID cards, which tells you everything. Using the politics of fear. They tried it again during COVID, you'll remember?
Yeah.
Now, then in the financial crisis, they tried it as well. They're trying it again. Look, what I don't get is, look, I've been saying before anybody else was saying it that we need to clamp down on illegal employment in the black market. But the people who are employing people illegally aren't doing checks already.
No, of course.
Right?
They don't care, do they?
People have a national insurance number. You should be checking their ID anyway. If they're not doing it now, why are they going to do the digital? The whole point is it's a black market economy. But they don't care about these things.
Exactly. It's a bit like saying, you know, it's the same people who say we've got a war going on drugs. It's like, yeah, but you're not winning it, and people are not going to, you know, it's like going up to a drug dealer and saying, do you know what you're doing is illegal? You must stop. And they know it's illegal. They're not going to stop because they make a lot of money doing it.
If they wanted to be serious and get to tackle the issue of the underground economy, imprison people who are found to be employing people without a right to be here.
Right.
Don't just fine them, because they don't care about fines.
Right.
Put employers in prison, then you'll see things come in, right? That's what you need to do, rather than these gimmicks about ID cards. And I fear that these ID cards will be just one more stepping stone to a China-style social credit system. Because, of course, you know, we're told, oh, it's just going to have your picture and then biometrics on there. But we're also told you're going to need to have it to access public services.
Yeah.
So, well, look at your social media postings.
Right, exactly right. And, I mean, I've been listening to a lot of people talking about this, and we'll talk to Alan Miller coming up in a little while about it from the Together declaration. There's not much actual detail in what the government is planning to do, and there's an awful lot of loopholes in it. For example, they're calling it an ID card for working people, to make sure that those people who go to work are entitled to work. Well, what about the people who don't work? What about people who are on benefits, for example? Are you going to give one to those people so that they can not claim benefits if they're not entitled to them? Because there's a lot of that going on as well.
Yeah, exactly. And of course, what about people who don't have smartphones? Not everybody has a smartphone.
Right.
Not everybody wants to have a smartphone. No. What about areas where you've got very poor internet connection? You know, there are lots of parts of this country where people can't actually access the internet to download the stuff if they wanted to actually be able to use it. Well, there are so many areas
and here's
here
another area where it seems to be completely unthought through. It says it would be mandatory for everyone in Britain and designed to make it easier for employers and landlords to check a person's immigration status using a smartphone app. However, it then says the practicalities of the scheme are still unknown. This is the i-newspaper, and will be subject to consultation, which means that will push that way into the long grass. It then says, including on how it will work for those in the UK without a smartphone or a passport. So if you come here illegally, right, and you haven't got a passport, how are they going to give you a digital ID if they don't know who you are, for example?
They won't be. I mean, this thing is completely flawed, and we know why. It's because they weren't actually thinking about it till Tony Blair said this, and also Sarkozy said, look, one of the reasons people are coming to Britain is because there's no ID cards there. Really, is that the reason? But they've been caught on the back hoof by all of this, and so they've come out with all of this without doing any of the background work, and they're being left with egg on their face.
Yeah. Also, if the French are such experts in digital ID to stop people coming to Britain, why are they all coming to France?
Yes,
because that's where they're coming from.
That's a very good point. Exactly.
They're not coming to Britain from Eritrea.
You've just cut through the Gordian knot.
But it's true. And also, the other thing is, in terms of stopping people from accessing, illegal work, how exactly do they think that's going to work out? How are they going to? Well, they're going to sort of roll up into some, car wash in the middle of Reading and arrest a load of Romanian people, and then what are they going to do with them? So you're not allowed to work, and then what?
Well,
do they deport them for working without an ID card? What do we do?
Yeah, well, mass deportations will be a way to obviate the need for ID cards if you just got ahead with that.
Right.
That's what I mean. There are real practical policies that could be put in place. Mass deportations, imprisoning rogue landlords, imprisoning rogue employers, rather than just basically making all of us now have one of these Gestapo-esque show me your papers society.
But this is also going to bring back memories to people of the COVID app, because apparently it's not going to be an actual physical card like a driving licence. It will be on your phone, right? So according to a sort of Q&A in the Mail, it won't be a physical card. A previous UK scheme was ultimately abandoned because it relied on a digital photograph which measures the precise distance between facial features. It is possible that a new scheme would require other biometric details such as fingerprints. Details could be cross-referenced against a central database. And I heard something chilling yesterday. There's a guy called Ivan Sampson who appears on our shows variously. He's an immigration lawyer, human rights lawyer. He actually said yesterday on Peter Cardwell's show, he said it will probably be the case, and quite rightly so, that if you don't have the right to work and you don't have the right papers, if you go to Tesco's to try and buy some food, you won't be able to.
Yeah. No,
I mean, that is terrifying.
And yeah, that's terrifying. But also, who on earth trusts our government to keep our data safe, right? We know full well how many data leaks have been around. We're already hearing about JLR and all these other cyber attacks and so forth. I don't trust the government on this. What's remarkable is, unfortunately, is that how many British people are behind this idea of ID cards. I don't think they understand the full consequences of this. We used to have faith in a lot of the British public, but still a majority of the British public would go into a lockdown again if they were told that they needed to go into a lockdown.
Of course.
And another lot are willing to give up their freedoms with ID cards, yet at the same time, 63% of the public don't trust the government to keep their data safe. So I don't know what they're talking about.
And then Starmer's going to say in a speech later on today, for too many years it's been too easy for people to come here, slip into the shadow economy and remain here illegally. And then he says it is not compassionate left-wing politics to rely on labour that exploits foreign workers and undercuts fair wages. Well, it used to be compassionate left-wing politics not that long ago. Only a few years ago, Keir Starmer was part of a group of people stopping the government from deporting dangerous criminals and keeping them in the country so they could continue to be dangerous criminals, to wit that guy from Jamaica who ended up murdering somebody.
Yeah, the audacity of this man to basically have been one of the cheerleaders for the greatest act of harm since the Second World War with mass immigration. And what does he say? Writing in the Telegraph, he says that the party did shy away from people's concerns about immigration. Now, that is the biggest statement, the biggest understatement since Oliver Reed said, I like a drink once in a while. Right? This is absolutely unbelievable.
Yeah, incredible. Yeah, he says we got it wrong on migration. The other thing that worries me slightly about all of this, and this was put to me by Christian, it could well be another distraction, because I think I've worked out what it is that this government does. Whenever they're under pressure on a particular subject, they kind of come up with another brand new sort of initiative to try and take everybody's eyes away from Morgan McSweeney, who's been on the front pages literally for the last 4 days, particularly the Daily Mail. And so, look, hey, presto, here's an ID card. And suddenly he's off for front pages now.
Dead cat
sort
syndrome.
Of, yeah. I wonder if there's a bit of that going on.
Yeah, so we all basically have to sacrifice our liberties just to keep Morgan McSweeney in the job.
But this is how desperate they are, these people.
Well, you know the old adage, once once a member of staff becomes the story, once an advisor becomes the story, his days are numbered. It happened with Dominic Cummings.
And that was Alistair Campbell's mantra, wasn't it? It happened to him.
And so I think Morgan McSweeney has been in the papers long enough now for his card to be forever blotted, I suspect.
Right. Now, I've got a couple of good little clips to show you here. This is Culture Secretary Lisa Nandy last night on Question Time. I wasn't able to watch it, actually, but here's what she had to say. I'm sure this will make everything a lot clearer.
How will these digital ID cards work?
Well, one of the things that we're thinking about is whether to introduce digital ID, and we think there is some merit in this. The Prime Minister will say a bit more about this tomorrow, but we think that they offer two benefits. The first is that they'll be able to make sure that people are able to prove their right to be here, to work here legally very easily, which will then help us to deal with the illegal economy and stop people being undercut at work. But we also think there might be big benefits as well for citizens. If you think about the way that the NHS app has developed in recent years, and now you're much more able to do things like make GP appointments online and access your medical records, we think there may be benefits to the general population as well.
So if you've got an NHS app that you can do all that with, why do you need a digital ID as well?
Precisely, exactly.
Doesn't make any sense, does it?
We have national insurance numbers, we have these NHS apps, we don't need it.
Right.
Precisely.
And then she also says there, we're thinking about this and we're possibly doing that. I think they've rushed this out. And I'm beginning to be more and more convinced that it's really just a dead cat thing to try and scare everybody and stop talking about Morgan McSweeney. I wonder if that's actually what's really going on here. Because it doesn't look like they've really given it a hell of a lot of thought. Well, they clearly haven't thought through every single possibility.
They're promising to have it in place by the end of this Parliament, but it wasn't a government manifesto. It wasn't a manifesto commitment at all. It's being opposed. It's even brought Nigel Farage and Jeremy Corbyn together, united in their opposition to it for both civil liberties reasons and also for Corbyn. He thinks it's not going to be fair for ethnic minorities, but that's rather the point, I suspect.
Well, isn't that the point? But the fact without a kind of a cogent deportation policy, which they still don't have. You know, so far we've counted, the man with the ticker, as I was saying this week, has counted 1, 2, 3, I think now 4 people who have been sent back to France, and in return we've had a family of 3 with a child come the other way. But as far as, actually cracking down on deportations, unless they're going to do that, it makes no difference if they discover here's somebody who doesn't have the right to work here. So what are you going to do then? Deport them? No.
Yeah, exactly. Look, get the refugee camps open, empty all the private accommodation, put people in prison and start mass deportations on a big scale, and you will see the change happen.
And then they won't keep coming. Yeah, they'll stay where they are. Let's have a look at what Nigel Farage has to say about digital ID.
All that digital ID will be is a means of controlling the population, of telling us what we can and can't do, of fining the innocent. And didn't we see it all when we had the pandemic, when you had to have vaccine ID to travel, to do various things? Did that stop the COVID pandemic spreading? Did it hell? All it did was put cost and inconvenience on everybody else. I also worry about massive data banks being held by the government, being hacked by foreign governments, by private companies, by criminals. I do not see a single benefit to the government having digital ID other than them controlling what we do, what we spend, and where we go. And we, in Reform, are wholly opposed to it in every single way.
And I think most people who are sensible will be wholly opposed to it in every single way. And we'll be talking to many of you, I'm sure, about it today. So call us 0344 499 1000. On the subject of Tony Blair, perhaps the most astonishing story about him that I've seen for a while, in addition to him pushing for, digital IDs all the time, is that apparently he wants to run Gaza. I'm not joking. I mean, you'd think this was an April Fool's story. Tony Blair literally wants to spearhead a plan to end the conflict through his think tank, and he wants to offer to head an interim government in Gaza on the proviso that power would eventually be handed over to the Palestinian Authority. I mean, talk about megalomania.
And just when you thought the poor people of Gaza had suffered enough, we parachuted Tony Blair.
No, we'd rather have the IDF stalking
we
the
surrender,
streets.
we will release the hostages. Please don't give us Tony Blair. But yeah, I mean, the irony here is that the left are attacking Israel as being colonizers, and then they want to bring in a white man to rule a lot of brown people.
Yes.
I mean, if you call me old-fashioned, I'm pretty sure that's the definition of colonialism, isn't it, really?
Well, as indeed Trevor Phillips pointed out to David Lammy when he said, you know, when you recognise Palestine, are you recognising the country that you think it to be a country, or are you only recognising it if it has certain, you know, ministers in the government? Because if you don't recognise it with Hamas in it, then doesn't that sound a bit like colonisation? And he didn't quite understand the question.
That's precisely what it is. So he wants to rule the country for several years before handing it over. Well, I'm calling it a country. Rule Palestine for several years before handing it over to the Palestinian Authority, after the Palestinian Authority has been significantly reformed and so forth. Israel has rejected any possibility of working with the Palestinian Authority, so I don't know how it's going to go ahead. But apparently a quarter of Gazans actually favoured some form of international involvement. That was before they knew it was Tony Blair that was actually the one coming over. I mean, it's one sort of possibility here, but basically it's another form of the technocrats coming in, you know?
Of course.
Completely undemocratic.
We know best. We'll tell you how to run your country. I mean, they tried that in Iraq, and look how that ended up. You know, they're still fighting over what's going on in Syria and Iraq, and they tried it in Libya. How did that go? Well, it looks like half of Libya is now living here.
Yeah, just remember, he was the Middle East peace envoy. That, of course, didn't go... The track record there's not great. I don't think Iraq and Afghanistan have benefited greatly from Tony Blair's involvement in there either. So,
I mean, it's incredible, isn't it? How do you get to do a job so badly in so many different places and yet still become a multi-millionaire and employable at the highest levels of government and indeed finance?
We're in the wrong industry.
How does that work? Got some very, very clever people watching and listening to this show. Steve says this: morning both. Digital ID, I can think of 740,000 reasons at least why Starmer and this pathetic government should be nowhere near it. As for the NHS app, it doesn't work. It's a distraction. Soph says, Mike, the Starmsy digital ID is being imposed on us as part of a UN Agenda 21, the digitalisation of every human who can then be controlled. By the time people realise this is a conspiracy, the digital prison door will be shut. The frog is already part-boiled. And finally, Mackenzie, the digital ID chatter is Operation Save Starmer. One big distraction from his woes. It's never going to happen. Let's get back to Mr McSweeney. Budget tax rises and the fact that the country is going to hell in a handcart. Well, funnily enough, there's a really big piece, and we'll talk about it. We should probably take a break. We'll talk about it next. A big piece in the Mail written by their city editor who says that he fears there is a terrible fiscal crash coming. The worst kind of, you know, physical collapse of this country's financial business than anybody's ever seen. And it's a very compelling piece. We'll talk a bit about that coming up. 6:21.
They're going to call them brick cards. Brick card, please. You know, that isn't the British way. We've never done that sort of thing. And people say, oh, they have it in America. They don't really. I mean, I lived in the States. You have to have a driving licence, even if you don't have a car. This is East Germany. This is Stalin's Russia. This is China. You know, this isn't. And so they say, well, this is going to be the best way to solve the migrant crisis.
That's just rubbish.
It's rubbish. Yeah. This is about control. This is classic socialist control.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Morning Glory, 6:25. I'm Mike Graham with you all the way through until 10 o'clock. It is Friday, the 26th of September. Rafe Halloween-Coo is here, of course, for the New Cultural Forum and elsewhere as well. Big breaking news poll at the moment, Rafe, for you. Nigel Farage on course to be Prime Minister, according to a seat-by-seat YouGov poll, literally just published a few moments ago, based on an MRP polling projection on a 13,000 sample, which is a pretty big sample. Nigel Farage is on course, basically, to get 306 reform gains, up from the current tally of 5, which is pretty extraordinary. Basically, they're saying it looks like Reform with 311 seats, Labour 144, Lib Dem 78, Conservatives 45, SNP 37, Greens 7, Plaid 6, others 3. So basically, they've improved their position since the last one of these, which was taken in June, where it was 55 seats short of a majority. This projection suggests 306 Reform gains, which would be the biggest increase in any election in British history.
Yeah, and things are only going up. I mean, we still have a long time till the election. Things can go up or down, but this is, you know, this is a sign that the country is desperate for change. Politics is broken in this country. There are only basically 2 options in this country. It's reform or it's the others. Yeah. And we've tried the others. That hasn't worked. I think this country is ripe for a counter-revolution, because I always say Britain is a post-revolutionary society. We've already had a revolution. This country's changed beyond all recognition. We need a counter-revolution to get back to some normalcy and where we should be at this point.
And that's certainly what we hear every single day from our viewers, from our listeners. We've got some great messages coming in. We're going to play you some Starmer clips in a minute, just to keep you all amused for the first part of the Friday morning scenario. Regarding ID cards, says Mark, this was not in their manifesto. I would like to know when this idea was thought up. It seems this happened overnight. Well, the thing is, they've always been talking about it, but, you know, again, with many of these Labour announcements, there's no real meat on the bones. It's almost as if they're trying to get sort of approval from the country in principle. You know, it's like when you go and get a mortgage in principle, and then they see the house and go, oh, actually, we're not going to give you the money for that house.
They haven't been briefed by Tony Blair's Institute yet, so they don't know what to say.
No. Beck says this. Good morning, Mike. Margaret, currently in Tunisia. What is this so-called government up to? Digital ID under the mask of trying to stop illegal migration. Do they think we're stupid? I've already signed a petition against it. Hundreds of thousands of people have, of course. And then this one from somebody called, who are we? Mel. Good morning. With all the cyber attacks that are happening at the moment, is Keir Starmer and the government going to give a 100% guarantee that this won't happen with ID software? Already we have share codes to check non-British citizens have the right to work and rent in this country, so there are already things in place. They just want to control us and what we do. I think that's right. There's no real evidence that this is going to happen, actually, by the way, as well, because despite all of the noises they're making, it doesn't look to me like they've got it actually ready to go, anywhere near ready to go. Let's have a look at what Starmer's been up to, though. He's been putting out some tweets, because obviously leading up to Labour Party conference kicking off on Sunday, they've got more problems in Labour government than they've ever had. They're all fighting like rats in a sack, and they've all got it in for Keir Starmer. Here's what he says about patriotic duty.
We're up against those that feed off the politics of grievance. Ours is a mission for what I consider to be the Britain of decent, reasonable, compassionate, tolerant people. The vast majority of people in this country are. Our mission is the triumph of national renewal over the division and decline that is offered. And that is our patriotic responsibility.
He keeps talking about renewal. Nobody knows what that means. Do you have any idea what he means by that?
No, but looking at that, I couldn't tell whether that was AI or not. He's so robotic when he speaks. I literally, I thought that was actually an AI video.
Do you know, we played a clip earlier in the week, and this is of him thanking the police at Chequers after Donald Trump's visit last week. And he talks to them through a walkie-talkie, and the walkie-talkie Keir Starmer actually sounds more normal than the actual Keir Starmer. Here he is talking about splashing the cash in the regions, which he's going to do, apparently, to save us all. It's our money that he's giving away. Where's he finding all this money from? It's the same old Labour, isn't it? Bribe people so that they won't vote for another party. He's basically targeting all the places where reform are likely to do very well, and he's trying to give them money which will somehow rescue them from voting reform, which won't work.
I think it's called bribery.
It is called bribery.
That's basically what's happening here.
Yeah.
But of course, he hasn't. Nowhere did he say how much money was being given to them either.
Right.
Which I think.
Or exactly what they can spend it on, where he's going to get the money from.
Is it £10 coming over? I don't know. How
it's
much
insane. And here he is trying to be a bit more specific about regions.
Everybody has pride of place in where they live. They want the very best for where they live. And real ambition. What they really want is a government that comes up alongside that, understands that pride and that ambition. And that's what we're doing. The funding is significant and it's really important, but the way in which the money will be used is hugely important, because it's not Whitehall dictating what's going to be done. It's people with skin in the game, local panels, and they will know their patch, they will know the thing that will make a real difference in their community, and we're empowering them to take those decisions.
As somebody pointed out today on Twitter, for a guy who's introducing a nationwide digital ID identification sort of scenario, it's a bit rich saying he's giving power back to communities. He seems to be taking it from communities and making it centralised in some kind of digital ID package, so that you can't do anything unless you qualify.
Yeah, I mean, look, I'm all in favour of localised people having a say in what they do, but you're quite right. This is a hugely centralising government, so it's quite an oxymoron, an anomaly what they're.
Yeah, absolutely right. Let's have a quick look just at what this piece is in the Mail that I was talking about, and it's from the city editor, who's actually been around for a long time and knows a thing or two about the state of our nation. And he says, Alex Brummer, his name is, in 50 years as a city writer, I've almost never felt so worried. A terrible crash is coming. Warning signs are absolutely everywhere. And he said last week something extraordinary happened to the New York Stock Exchange. A company called Brera Holdings, which owns stakes in football clubs, announced an intention to buy cryptocurrency tokens. And he says this is not just remarkable because of the fact that they own such big stakes in places like Liverpool or Real Madrid, but they also own stakes in Mongolian league clubs, North Macedonian clubs, Mozambican clubs. So the whole sort of international financial market is changing before our very eyes. We appear to be sort of sitting rather like sort of antediluvian people from the 17th century.
What he's saying is essentially that all markets around the world actually are now speculating quite rashly without any actual research. They're pouring money into completely unknown things. OpenAI, shares and various things that are happening right now. And he quotes John Kenneth Galbraith, the great economist who chronicled the Great Depression, who coined a term called bezel. And when really respectable organisations start bezeling, start basically investing in the complete unknowns, huge sums of money, that's usually a sign that everyone thinks, oh, things can only get better, and they can only work for so long. And he cites the fact that, you know, GDP, the government debt ratio is close to 100% of GDP here. In France, it's 114%. In America, it's 140%. He says rising unemployment, as we have now, is a classic sign of an impending recession.
It's a sort of new version of the subprime mortgage market, isn't it?
But gold has hit a record high. Bitcoin is just below its all-time record high. The Dow Jones, Nasdaq, Nikkei in Japan, they're close to all their peaks. These are all the warning signs, he says, of an impending calamity coming.
Yes, and another story, I think, which kind of sums up where we are in this country, which is on page 10, I think, of the Mail, all about the benefits business. Because, again, talking of digital IDs, you know, how about a digital ID card to make sure that people who get benefits actually are entitled to them? Benefits Britain, it says, 36 million people get more from the benefits business in this country than they pay in tax. 36 million. It's outrageous.
This is beyond belief. I mean, I knew things were bad. This makes a crash even more likely, if you ask me, because the fact is, more than half of the people in this country are receiving benefits paid for by less than half of the people in this country.
Yeah.
You know, and we are the sick man of the G7. You know, 7% of the British workforce is out of work due to long-term illness. That's higher in any country, and Japan, it's twice the number in Japan. Now, Japan has the world's oldest population, and yet they have fewer people on benefits than we have in this country.
Because we've got this stupid system of universal credit and sort of, you know, what they used to call tax credits, where people who are working get their wages topped up by the government. It's an insane scheme. Started, I think, by Gordon Brown.
And at the same time, of course, the government's ridiculous economic policies are driving even more rich people out of this country. Taxpayers are fleeing the country just at the time when we need them here, because we cannot carry on with this Ponzi scheme. Look, you know, the Centre for Social Justice think tank showed that 650,000 people are claiming personal independence payments for anxiety and mood disorders. You know,
I saw this yesterday. I think 250 people extra per day are claiming that. Unbelievable.
It's making me anxious read all of this. Maybe I should get a PIP payment.
It is incredible, isn't it? This from Rob in Middlesex. I work in insurance and work in the renewals department. Starmer talks about renewal, but all it means is they want to continue what they're doing. He's making it sound like they're going to make change and move to something new. It's complete doublespeak. Very good point. One from EC, Eddie from Preston. That first clip from Starmer, that sad song in the background, makes me just want to lock myself in my wardrobe and cry. He's not very good at being uplifting or enthusiastic. He is also a rubbish speaker. He really is. And Sean says, I don't want any government to come up alongside me. I'm not particularly proud of my region. It's a bit of a hellhole these days, to be honest. And he's in a place called Bridlington. And one here from someone who doesn't give a name. Another stupid idea, ID cards. We already have something called a national insurance number. All employers must only hire people who have a valid NI number. It's their responsibility. And that's right. You know, this idea that somehow a new digital ID on a phone, particularly if you're trying to stop people coming here illegally on small boats, they're throwing their phones in the sea, right? So you give them a new phone, and then you ask them who they are and where they're coming from, without any idea of who they are or where they're coming from, because you can't check a database with Interpol, because we don't do that anymore. You can take their fingerprints and you can give them a new identity, and then they can be told anything you like. I mean, it makes no sense at all.
No, it's complete nonsense.
It's complete and utter rubbish. Let's get a voice note from Belinda.
Morning, Mike. Belinda here. Great show. Morning, Rafe. Yeah, about these digital ID cards, why are they calling it a Brit card? It sounds like a blimmin' rail pass. I mean, surely they should be giving everybody who isn't British this card and just call it an ID card. Then you'll find out who's supposed to be here, who isn't supposed to be here. Don't know how they're going to do it. You can't force somebody to have this card, you know, and if you've come over on a boat and you've chucked your ID in, then how can you can't even start to apply for this. It's absolutely ridiculous.
The whole thing is absolutely ridiculous. This from Luke in Stafford. Morning, Mike. I think the British public can play the government at their own game here. Article 8 of the Human Rights Act allows people a private life, and that includes correspondence, so every person will be entitled to invoke that act with ID cards. So therefore, they would have to leave the Human Rights Act, which in itself solves the problem, but surely two-tier should know that. What a plank. I mean, I think that's a good point. I'll raise this actually with our friends from the Together Declaration, Alan Miller, because he will probably be all over this. I imagine he'll know what the legalities are. Surely they cannot impose some kind of restriction on you in terms of what your movements are, in terms of what you spend your money on, in terms of what public services you access. They can't do that, can they?
Well, we saw in Canada that they absolutely can.
Yes, but they ended up, I think, having to reverse that, didn't they? Because they only did it under the sort of COVID emergency Act.
Under the Emergency Powers Act,
right.
Yes. But I mean, look, I'm really quite serious. I think we are sleepwalking into a Chinese social credit system, you know. For viewers at home, essentially, if you want to get a mortgage, even if you want to put petrol in your car, you could be at a point now where you have to scan your card, and if you're deemed not to have enough social credit in the bank,
or,
so
you know,
speak,
or they decide that
denied.
You've actually been travelling too far this month, so actually, no, we can't give you any more petrol because, you know, you're ruining the environment, so you just have to stay in the house or get a bus.
Look, just this week we've had new powers granted to HMRC to go directly into your bank account and take money out directly, right? That used to be a sacrosanct thing, your bank account. So, look, anything is possible with this government.
It really is. It's quite extraordinary and quite ridiculous. Now, it's Friday, so we normally like to play you a few gaffes. I mean, we've already technically played you 3 gaffes by Keir Starmer, because that's what all of his videos are. But here's one from Steve Reed, who's now the Secretary of State for Housing.
So many communities have felt for decades powerless to do anything about what they see as the decline of their town centre or their local high street. They've seen a proliferation of vape shops, betting shops, dodgy barbers that don't seem to be cutting anybody's hair, closed shops, pubs closing down like this beautiful pub I'm in today, and they want to do something about it, but nothing has worked. So what we're announcing today is the powers going into the hands of local people so that they can take back pride in their own local area.
Technically speaking, that's not the gaffe we were looking for. However, it sort of is a gaffe because he's standing in a pub, right? And the one thing that Rachel Reeves has managed to do since she's been Chancellor is shut down, I think it's about one pub every single day since she's been in, because of the national insurance increases, because of the rise in the cost of energy, because of the rise in the cost of beer and all sorts of other, wholesale goods, because of the included rise in national insurance. And so they've been shutting pubs down. Now they're saying they're going to campaign to keep them open.
Yeah, and of course, with the new employment rights bill, they're going to basically have banter police in those pubs as well, monitoring your free speech.
Oh, so if you upset the bartender, you could be hauled out and beaten up with a rubber truncheon and put in the back of a paddy wagon. I mean, it's incredible, isn't it, how quickly this country has become where we are now. I find it really quite shocking. But listen, there is more to be told. There are more news stories to do. There's stories that we will absolutely have you gasping for. One here from The Times, which says they're going to have mandatory reading ages at 13. They're going to start examining people at 13 to see if they can read properly. Incredible. We'll tell you the story of an illegal migrant who pretended to be a child. He turned out to be 23. And we'll also tell you what the latest is on this Morgan McSweeney story. Apparently, he took a secret donation of £50,000 on the very day that he was told by the Electoral Commission to declare it. And he didn't declare it. Didn't declare it for 3 years. This is Talk.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Morning Glory, 6:43. This from Robert. He says, morning guys, just a quick question. Would digital ID have prevented Starmer and McSweeney from pocketing over £700,000 in campaign funds, asking for a friend before Plod storms my house with armed response K9 and circling helicopters for tweeting? Yeah, I know, just in case. One from Les, who says, morning Mike, regarding IDs, people are just not thinking this through. One of the benefits of digital ID is they allow government to pre-populate your tax return, meaning they have full access to your bank account. How soon before they take tax directly from your account? This must be resisted at all costs. I think all of these things are very possibly true. And shouldn't we be detaining and documenting the migrants, says Glenn, rather than documenting and watching our own British citizens? Well, that would make sense, wouldn't
There's
it?
a novel idea.
I know, absolutely right. Let's just have a quick look at what the latest is on the McSweeney front, because we're saying that some of this stuff might be a distraction from the McSweeney scandal, because as of yesterday, there's still an awful lot of questions that need to be asked by the Electoral Commission and the Parliamentary Standards Authority, not to mention the police. But fascinating development today. They say Keir Starmer's Chief of Staff hid a £50,000 donation on the very day he was told he had a legal duty to declare the funding of his organisation. And he didn't declare it that day, and he didn't declare it the next day. He didn't declare it for 3 years.
Yeah, it's quite remarkable. It was the Electoral Commission wrote to him and said he's required by law to report any donation over $7,500, and that same day he accepted $50,000 donation, and it only came out.
Didn't tell them.
It was a year after he left that this actually came out. I mean, you know, we need to have need to have an investigation by the Electoral Commission into all of this, because he was also twice warned by the Electoral Commission that he needed to actually reveal this, and he's even claiming to have had a conversation with the Electoral Commission, and the Electoral Commission said we have no evidence of this conversation in 2018, in which he claims he didn't have to do it. But it also comes, there's even another revelation here, that Morgan McSweeney failed to declare...
McSwindle, I like it.
failed to declare that a lobbyist had given him a hospitality ticket to a football match during the height of Freebiegate last year. So there you are, middle of Freebiegate, when all of the glasses and suits of... And there he was accepting a ticket to a... So at least his political instinct and acumen clearly is lacking. We know how unpopular he is with Labour Party backbenchers because of how badly Labour's doing in the polls. As we said earlier, once the advisor becomes the story, his time is numbered. And I would say his time certainly is.
I would say his time is numbered, and I would say that conversation was probably had yesterday, because I was speculating yesterday that he would go before conference, because otherwise all that people will be talking about during Labour Party conference this weekend will be Morgan McSweeney and what they're going to do about him. And I think they came up with this strategy to do the ID card. Because here's another interesting development. Dan Hodges, who has been, you know, snapping at Morgan McSweeney's heels pretty much for the last 7 days, he's found out that basically Labour Together, which is the group that collected all this money, has been the kind of the sole guide, if you like, in terms of ideology for this government. And it's, in fact, he's suggesting that Labour Together were the people that first floated the idea of a brick card back in June. It was Labour Together's idea. So either the government read the policy document and decided to introduce a fundamental national policy change in less than 2 months, or, says Dan Hodges, Downing Street is still so close to Labour Together, it's using them to fly policy.
Yeah, no, Labour Together's fingerprints...
The whole thing stinks.
...are all over this government, and they're all over Keir Starmer, of course, because they were the ones who orchestrated. They had him portraying himself as a Corbynista to become head of the party. Once he's head of the party, he changes his thing again. We don't actually know what Starmer actually believes, because it seems as if Labour Together are the ones dictating what happens.
He believes whatever apparently McSweeney tells him.
Yeah, well, that's what I mean, precisely.
You know, that's it. And then on page 7 of the Mail, I quite like this, Andy Burnham, who is, for all the world, dressed like he's a member of the Chinese Communist Party already. He's wearing this kind of strange Maoist jacket on page 7. Here he is on page 7 of the Mail, if you can see it. He looks like he's in New Order, but also it looks like he could be wearing something that's provided by the Chinese Communist Party. There he is there. And he's a very strange character, isn't he, Andy Burnham? Because he keeps saying, oh, I'm not interested in being the Prime Minister, but everybody keeps asking me to challenge Keir Starmer. He's got his face on the New Statesman cover, which somebody said yesterday is going to be transferred all over. It's going to be free copies all over Labour Party conference. So his face is going to be front and centre. He's triggered a Labour civil war, it says here, after Keir Starmer likened him to Liz Truss, apparently, and several other sort of members of the cabinet have basically told him to stick to his local Mancunian ways and not come anywhere near London and not come anywhere near Downing Street. Rachel Reeves said, I know that Andy is focused on delivering change in Greater Manchester. So they've got it out, they've got it in for him, I think.
Oh yes, well, you know, once you've got your party leader comparing you to Liz Truss, I think you know full well. And of course, the NEC has to. And basically, what we know is that all of Starmer's supporters are going to try their best to block Andy Burnham getting a seat in Parliament. Right. To get a seat in Parliament, you need to be approved by the NEC, which is the governing body of the Labour Party. They are square behind Starmer, and they said they don't think that it's suitable for him to actually become an MP. So that's going to create even more division between the two wings of the Labour Party if Burnham's backbenchers can see him being thwarted openly by Starmer.
Absolutely,
but of course, also the bond markets, you know, are worried about this as well. just the idea of Burnham coming into power has already led to another 0.5% rise in the cost of borrowing on gilt yields, and the markets will be spooked because he seems inordinately naive when it comes to the economy.
Well, they all are, aren't they? I mean, he wants to put on a wealth tax, he wants to put income tax up to 50% rate. I mean, the guy is literally, you know, a walking member of the Chinese Communist Party. Let's see what's coming up in the next section of the show. We'll bring you more details of that story about Andy Burnham. Also, we'll tell you more about the illegal migrant, and we'll also tell you about another additional amount of money that old Red Ed Miliband wants to put on your energy bill. 0344 499 1000. Let's get a voice note from Hev.
These IDs, you know, that's going to cost how much? I'm just sort of thinking, well, why don't they just detain these people when they come across? If they're illegal, they're illegal. If they've entered the country illegally, that means they've broken the law, so detain them. And then we won't have an issue, will we? Just spend the money on razor wire so that, you know, we can keep them all in a camp, throw in a couple of tents and let them get on with it. I'm just sick of this whole bloody thing.
I don't blame you, Hev. I think we all are. We've got lots more to do. We'll play you that gaff from Steve Reed, which I think we've finally found. Rafe Harder-Mancour is here. Back after this.
Have lots of details. The government already have lots of details. The NHS already have lots of details. If this is just one extra thing that the government can have in their armoury to try and solve illegal migration, they are going to go for it.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Morning Glory. I'm Mike Graham with you all the way through, of course, until 10 o'clock. Ray Parliament-Q is here. Natasha says, morning, Mike. Digital ID for illegal migrants won't make any difference because they don't do legal jobs. They just work in the underground economy, so completely pointless. Well, as I said before, it's a bit like the war on drugs people who go, well, we're going to stop the drugs coming into the country and, you know, it's illegal to import them and so therefore people won't do it anymore. And you go, well, actually, that's why they do it, funnily enough. Rafe, you've spotted one in the Telegraph you want to tell us about that.
This beggars belief. Page 3 of the Telegraph. RAF spam busters win the right to wear vegan flight suits, right? So in America, DI is in full reverse. Yeah. Complete war on woke in the American military. Yeah. Over here, the Ministry of Defence's vegan and vegetarian network, which exists, they are wanting to stamp out animal products. And the RAF say, yes, of course you can, because as RAF personnel, you have the option to replace clothing in line with your own morals and values. Now, this is at the same time that we're trying to go to war with Russia, talking about, you know, existential crisis to Europe, and we're worrying about whether people are wearing leather shoes or not, you know, and you just got to wonder, if you're a vegan soldier, how are you going to feel when you've got to bayonet the opposition in the stomach? Are you going to be able to actually physically attack somebody if you have this idea? And, you know, we're being laughed at by our enemies.
Well, when you're getting your feet blown off, I don't think you care what kind of shoes you're wearing.
Can you imagine the Russians? There was a time in war when you'd see the Gurkhas running towards you. Yeah. It would instill fear. Right. If you've got the vegans come, you know, dancing over towards you, I just don't know. Well, we're going to become a laughing stock around the world if we can.
They've got a beret which is non-wool, right? I mean, I imagine, actually, I mean, to be serious for a moment, the thing about a wool beret is that it breathes, and if you're actually in a hot place, you're not going to get as sweaty and hot. If you're wearing something which is artificial, I'm afraid that's not going to be so good. Then you get boots made from recycled Action Man dolls.
Yeah, that's wonderful.
Seriously, I mean, these people are a joke, aren't they? It's really bloody embarrassing. Absolutely awful. A couple of other stories. Red Ed adds another £90 to your bill. It's page 6 of The Sun. This is apparently the latest from Ed Miliband, who keeps popping up. Do you know he was in New York the other day? He decided to go to the UN for no particular reason, because I guess he was trying to get his air miles up. But according to this piece in The Sun, his drive to net zero could see yet another £90 being added to your bill. Electricity charges will soar due to increased investment required in networks as part of the energy transition. Again, the energy transition that nobody asked for.
Yeah, and this follows on from a story from last week we were discussing, where there was even more money being added, I think another £200 because of the renewable subsidies that we're all paying here. Now, the reason this is important, apart from, of course, hitting you in the pocket, is that Ed Miliband actually pledged, he promised to cut your energy bills by £300, but now they're going to be almost £200 higher than when he took office, and we're not even in the foothills of this government.
It is remarkable, isn't it? We're still waiting for that £300 sort of bonus, as it were, that we're supposed to be getting back. And I guess by the time we get it, prices will have gone up by about £1,000, so it won't actually make any difference at all.
Well, the SDP did a very good analysis on energy, actually, and they found that we have we have the highest energy costs in the industrialised world. It's amounted to 100 and something billion pounds a year, £3 trillion in total, which is the sum equivalent to our entire GDP. If we didn't have the highest energy costs in this country, our economy would be growing far stronger than it actually is. And that, of course, would mean we've got money for infrastructure projects, for our public services. It's the high energy costs that are really crippling. It's the biggest, most ruinous economic policy of all time has been the energy policies, which are hampering us and tying both hands behind our back when countries like India and China are soaring ahead not having these costs. It's
I don't
madness.
understand how it's possible for a small little island like us, which has its own resources in the North Sea and has a relatively easy way of transmitting energy to homes in the country and a pretty good infrastructure, that we have the most expensive electricity in the world. It makes absolutely no sense. And there's a piece in the Telegraph saying the industry is actually being killed off, and now the people who are the biggest actual consumers of energy are small businesses like coffee shops, hairdressers, people who have got people plugging in iPhones all the time to charge them. You know, this revolution of AI is only going to cause even more, you know, money to be spent on electricity.
And if you want to attract business into this country, having high energy costs is not great, is it?
It really isn't.
But also you've got Norway, wonderful socially democratic, progressive, left-wing Norway, drilling in the North Sea. If they're willing to do it, why on earth can't we?
And selling their oil and gas to us.
Yeah.
which we won't drill next door to them. One final one, we should have mentioned this earlier probably. Police watchdog facing questions about its independence. It's on the front page of the Times, after allegedly telling officers the inquiry into failings in the Nottingham attacks was politically motivated and they would escape serious censure. And they basically told the police in the case, this is all being driven by the families of the victims, and don't worry about it.
Yeah, I think this is outrageous. You know, when the independent investigators need to have independent investigation, you know that our institutions are in a terrible position.
Yeah, you really do. Rafe, great to see you. Have a good weekend. Who knows what the news will bring over the course of the weekend, but you'll hear from us, of course, that the Labour Party conference kicks off on Sunday. Coming up, Kate Ferguson, political editor of The Sun on Sunday. She's got a brand new show out. We'll be talking to her all about that. She's been interviewing Robert Jenrick. Also, we'll bring you more on the digital ID scam and exactly what it is that Labour are up to, because I'm not sure they've even thought this one through. And is it really just a kind of a smokescreen to keep Morgan McSweeney off the front pages and out of the sort of common eye line? We shall see. 0344 499 1000. Send us a voice note. We'll see you after the news.
Is it transphobic to say only women have a cervix?
Well, it is something that shouldn't be said. It is not right. A woman is an adult female, and the court has made that absolutely clear. I actually welcome the judgment because I think it gives real clarity. It allows those that have got to draw up guidance to be really clear about what that guidance should say. If you want to fight for Remain, vote Labour. Now, there are some who say we don't need Brexit to work. We need to reverse it. I couldn't disagree more. Day after day, there are new allegations of sleaze, of favours, of privileged access. And it's all very well the Prime Minister saying, well, say now, well, I'm paying for it.
You've decided to repay £6,000 worth of gifts.
Lord Ali is facing an investigation. I wonder how concerned you are that your biggest donor was not fully transparent.
Are you saying you made a mistake?
It was right for me to make those repayments. Thank you. Of course, I wouldn't want Donald Trump round for dinner, but don't underestimate the danger to the world if Trump is re-elected this time around. I'm anti-Trump. I would like to send my warmest congratulations to President Trump on his inauguration as the 47th President of the United States.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Morning Glory, coming up to 3 minutes past 7. It is Friday, the 26th of September. We've reached the end of another amazing week. Don't forget, if you don't see the entire show on any particular day, you can always pick up the podcast. Morning Glory comes out around about 10:15, 10:30 every single day. Today, we've got just as many stories to go at as you would expect. An incredible array of political scandal, a remarkable array of ridiculousness, of course, as well. And, of course, all of your thoughts on much of it. 0344 499 1000. Kate Ferguson joins us shortly. Political editor of The Sun on Sunday. I was with her the other day when Boris Johnson was interviewed by Harry Cole, and we were giving our various memories and opinions of him. And of course, people were saying, oh, is Boris Johnson making a comeback? I don't think so. And I think we all agree that probably his time has come and probably gone. It's all about Robert Jenrick. She's interviewed him for her new show. We'll be talking to her about that. But also, digital ID, front pages this morning. The card scheme will confirm the right to work. But there's an awful lot of questions being asked, not least by all of you, about exactly how this is going to work. It's supposed to be introduced by Labour sometime over the course of this Parliament, which means it might not happen for another 3 or 4 years. But basically, they're going to say it's meant to stop illegal migration. It's meant to track people and tell whether they are, in fact, able to work legally or not. They'll have some kind of app on a smartphone, but it's not going to include people without passports, who presumably include all of the illegal aliens, and it's not going to include people who don't have smartphones. So there'll be quite a few older people who won't be included in it. They say it will give you access to public services. They say it will give you permission to go shopping. They say it could reach into all sorts of dystopian areas and stop you from doing things that you should otherwise be able to do. It's Big Brother Britain, as you see there, and I don't think I fancy it, to be honest. 0344 499 1000. We'll bring you the latest on the Morgan McSweeney scandal. Some people think this is all a bit of a smokescreen to get him off the front pages. There's more in the Daily Mail about him. We've got, of course, the huge story coming up of Labour Party conference and what Andy Burnham's going to do. Plus, of course, we're going to take all of your calls. 0344 499 1000. It's coming up to 5 minutes past 7. This is Morning Glory. Let's get it on. Oh, yeah, and Tony Blair fancies running Gaza. I mean, I almost forgot. Incredible. Let's get a quick gaff in, though, because it is Friday. And Steve Reid is the Secretary of State for Housing. He came in after Angela Rayner took the old resignation bullet. Let's have a look at what he did when he was asked about Morgan McSweeney. Check it out.
Now, you know him. You worked with him at Lambeth Council. You know the Conservatives are asking questions about donations. Now, you're involved. Oh, well, I can see your name.
Yeah. Apparently what happens when you ask Steve Reid a question about Morgan McSweeney is that suddenly his internet fails and he goes offline. I can't imagine how that would happen. I mean, it's extraordinary, isn't it? Let's talk to Kate Ferguson, political editor at The Sun on Sunday. Kate, very good morning to you.
Hi, Mike. How are you?
Yeah, I mean, I hope your internet isn't going to suddenly fail if I ask you a question you don't fancy answering. I mean, that is about as bad a gaffe as I've ever seen.
It's a new get out of jail free. I think I might try that later, actually, if it's too tricky.
Yeah, I mean, the big story, obviously, this morning is ID cards. We'll come on to your big news show and your interview with Robert Jenrick in a sec. But the big new ID cards, a lot of people are already saying to me this morning, are you sure this is not just some kind of dead cat to throw in front of Morgan McSweeney to get him off the front pages? Because he's still in the mire. We've still got Andy Burnham off to the side, you know, pretending he doesn't want to be Prime Minister. Labour Party conference coming up on Sunday. You know, Starmer still is in quite a bit of trouble, isn't he?
Yeah, I mean, this move to adopt ID cards have been kind of a few months coming, really. They've been inching towards it. But I think we were expecting it potentially a bit later, potentially to be something that he announced at conference. I don't know about the dead cat with Morgan McSweeney, but I do think that part of the move to ID cards is this feeling that they need to be seen to be doing something big and potentially something controversial on borders. To be honest, I think it's a lot easier and better for the government if they're having a big discussion about ID cards, the rights and wrongs of that, what they're doing to crack down on illegal work in black market Britain, than actually the cameras being on those boat numbers day in, day out.
Yes.
So, yes, of course, look, there is a real conversation about whether or not this will help find illegal immigrants living in this country working illegally. The stats are shocking, right? I think it's something like 1 in 10 workers, maybe it's more than that, are illegal workers. It's a huge booming economy here, and everyone agrees you've got to do something about it. But the politics of it, yes, I mean, it is better for them to be talking about a policy, even a controversial policy that they are doing, than to be talking about inertia, inaction.
Right. Yeah, you're right, because obviously the whole one in, one out thing, we're now almost 2 weeks into it, and as far as I know, unless something else has happened, they've managed to deport 4 people to France, and we brought 3 people in, you know, a couple of parents and a child. And so, by any measure, it's moving incredibly slowly. And I think somebody did a calculation which would suggest that if that's the speed at which we're deporting people who shouldn't be here, we're going to be at it for about 1,000 years.
Yeah, I mean, the numbers are crazy. You know, loads and loads of work goes into those deportation deals. It was announced to quite a lot of fanfare by the last Home Sec. Then they managed to get that first person on a flight. Obviously a symbolic moment, something the new Home Sec was very kind of relieved at. But that same day, 1,000 people arrived here on small boats, I think, because the weather had been good. So, you know, those numbers are just dwarfing anything the government seems to be doing. So I do think that they're going to have to be kind of shaking the tree to pull any, I'm confusing my metaphors here, but really pull any lever they can. They need to be looking to be throwing the kitchen sink at this, because, you know, each thing they try may only have a small impact.
That's exactly right. The other big story this morning, I just want to get your view on quickly, I'm sure you've seen it, is this new YouGov poll, which came out this morning, revealing an incredible scale of conservative implosion. You're talking to Robert Jenrick in your first big show coming up this week. But the MRP polling projection, based on a 13,000 sample, shows Reform putting Nigel Farage absolutely clearly on his own into Downing Street as the Prime Minister. Seat-by-seat guide has got them going up to 311, Labour down to 144, Lib Dems 78, and Conservatives down to 45.
Yeah, this is one of those posh polls, right? Those polls that actually kind of go seat by seat, take a lot of work, cost a lot of money. So this is a poll everyone will be looking at. It's crazy, really. I mean, Nigel Farage is storming ahead. That support for reform out there in the real world just keeps building. So we spend a lot of time in politics, on radio shows like this, talking about those like Labour civil wars. We'll talk about it later, probably. Could Andy Burnham come and replace Keir Starmer one day? Well, meanwhile, the voters, I wonder if they've just stopped listening. They're going elsewhere. Hugely bad news for the Tory party. Look, the Tory party is a 200-year-old party. It was the most successful election-winning machine in Europe, in Western Europe. Yeah, they are the natural party of government in this country, and they face being decimated, like absolutely decimated in the next election if these polls are anything to go by. Huge wake-up call to their party. I know we're going to talk about the show in a minute, but when I was talking to Robert Jenrick, he had this really stark message that they need to start fighting. You know, you can't just cede the ground to Nigel Farage. They need to be going out there, making the bigger arguments, trying to kind of each day wrestle control back from Labour and from Reform and make people talk about the Tories again. Their conference in just over a week. Is Kemi Badenoch's first as leader? Could it be her last as leader? You know, the plots are thick in Westminster at the moment.
Absolutely right, which brings us nicely to a little clip from your new show. It's a new YouTube show, Kate's Political Lunch Dates. Here's a clip with Robert Jenrick.
I think that people are sick of seeing, you know, the Gaza flag being put up, a lamppost, a Pakistan flag. You know, a couple of weeks ago, I went down the road from here in Newark and put up Union flags on lampposts for a couple of hours, and car after car, HGV drivers, van drivers were honking their horns. They were saying, good for you. People want us to feel pride in our country, and in order to do that, you have got to integrate people properly and expect that everyone who comes into our country cherishes our history and our heritage and our culture.
Should there be this ban of putting up the kind of the Palestine flag then in public buildings or in the...
Well, look, I don't want foreign flags on public buildings.
Yeah.
I don't want to see them on the streets.
I mean, that's a very strong signal there that he wants to move the Conservative Party very much firmly to the right. It shouldn't have to sound like that, but what did you make of his performance there?
Yeah, I mean, Robert Jenrick is the Tory politician making all the running at the moment. He's really gone through this political transformation, which we also talk about in the show. You know, I think a few years ago, people would probably not be able to pick Robert out of a kind of room, kind of a grey-suited Tory. But he's gone over there. He's been kind of his views has hardened as a minister, particularly in the Home Office. He talked about how he got into the Home Office, everything was broken. It was a total bin fire, and that's what made him kind of really harden his views. And he's going out there and is grappling with these big issues at the moment. It's interesting, his comments on the flag. I mean, he's backing those people who are going out hoisting flags on their local lampposts. We've got Keir Starmer today making a big speech where he'll talk about ID cards. The other thing he's going to be talking about is his vision of patriotism, how he thinks the flag's being abused by populists and he wants to kind of reclaim it. He trailed a bit of that in our paper last weekend, the PM. But so you do have this kind of really big, hot political fight at the moment over, whose flag is it anyway? What should we do about our flag? What our vision for the country and patriotism is? Look, I mean, I think Robert is the one to watch in the Conservative Party at the moment. People, mentioned it earlier, people always ask about a Boris comeback. I think if Kemi's out, you're talking about a Robert leadership.
Yeah, I mean, certainly after that show we did the other night with Harry Cole Saves the West, and after Boris Johnson's interview with him, I mean, the message I got certainly from a lot of our listeners and viewers was they don't want Boris Johnson back. They don't think he's the answer. They think he had his chance. They think he betrayed them over Brexit. They think he betrayed them. I think the reform accusations about the Boris wave are certainly taking hold. People are listening to that and believing that Boris Johnson was responsible for lowering the immigration sort of thresholds in this country, and they don't want to see him back in power.
Immigration is the big issue. It's the big issue for the country. It's the big issue, which is why the Reform are doing so well in the polls. It could be what leads to Keir Starmer being booted out of office. And it's this issue that the Tories are really struggling with. They were in power for 14 years. It's their legacy we're living with. It's their legacy that they kind of have to own. And I think the difficult thing about Boris, you saw that in his interview, is that, he doesn't want to throw himself under the bus, right? He wants to defend what he did as Prime Minister. That's totally natural. That's what leaders want to do. But meanwhile, there's a lot of anger out there about, yes, illegal immigration, but also the sheer numbers of legal migration. Yeah. I think what we learned over the last few years is that numbers do still count. And if you promise to get those numbers down, election after election, year after year, and fail, then people will stop trusting you. And guess what? They'll stop voting for you. Yeah. That's the other big issue that Robert was talking about in the interview. He said we've failed on immigration. We have to own that. We have to come down and slap far, far harsher tougher curbs on our borders to just get those numbers right down. I mean, he's talking for a period of net emigration, which is a technical word, but it's basically when fewer people move to the UK than move out. It's been a long time since we've been in that world.
Yes, and did you detect any kind of a twinkle in his eye about reform in terms of, we've seen, obviously some defection. We saw the Dean Dorries going over, one of Boris's best friends, and of course we've seen all kinds of other Tory defections. Do you think there's any chance that he might do it at some point?
Well, I think currently his sights are probably still with the Tory party. I mean, everyone's talking about him as a possible next leader. I did ask him about the defection of Danny Kruger because I thought that probably would have hit home, because Danny Kruger ran Robert's campaign when he ran for Tory leadership. Right. So these guys are close, they're politically close, and they were personally close. So I did think that might really sting for him. He currently says, look, defections, talk of him defecting far too early. He says they need to kind of fight, win back hearts and minds, and kind of get the Tories back on the playing field of politics again. But, they with poll ratings like that, it's going to be a long, tough road to make a comeback.
It really is. Talking of long, tough roads, it's going to be a pretty long, tough road in Liverpool this weekend, isn't it? Keir Starmer trying to avoid Andy Burnham. Andy Burnham, every time anybody asks him, saying, oh, no, I don't want to be Prime Minister, but people keep asking me to do it.
Andy Burnham is showing so much leg on this leadership stuff. He's basically wearing a miniskirt. Look, I mean, it is always fun when you have these rivalries, these civil wars blowing up ahead of Labour conference. My phone was just pinging yesterday morning. I didn't even need to start texting anyone in Labour before they were voluntarily texting me, telling me that a period of silence from Andy Burnham would be most welcome. Right. I think he is absolutely infuriating a lot of the MPs and ministers and kind of staffers in government trying to get on with stuff. Look, Andy Burnham wants to be Labour leader. He's never been shy about it. He's run, twice, lost twice. And he's using his kind of, no doubt, popularity and this reputation he gets to have as being a kind of outsider from Westminster to kind of, to kind of leverage himself. it's going to be tricky for Andy Burnham to ever become Labour leader. Currently, he's going to have to win get a seat, win a by-election, then get nominated. But the fact that people are talking about it, the fact that Labour MPs are talking about it and hatching these sort of plots does speak to just how angry they are with Keir Starmer, how he has sort of lost that loyalty from them already.
Yeah, absolutely right. It's going to be a fascinating scenario at the weekend. I've got an update as well on the channel returns. Apparently, 2 more people have gone back. I think since yesterday, an Afghan and a Somali going to France under the new one-in, one-out deal. So that means we've got 6 out, and I think in the month of September, 3,180 in. So still quite a big deficit to make up.
Yeah, I mean, it's what we were talking about earlier. It does feel like if you can forget the palm, that drop in the ocean. Look, the state does need to be striking these deals. We do need to be getting those people on planes. We need to prove that the lefty lawyers can't thwart that at every attempt. So there is kind of a judicial issue here to prove. But, you know, you're going to have to make a much bigger dent in these numbers for anyone to really start listening. Yeah, absolutely right. Kate's political lunch dates, where can we find it? When is it out? YouTube, I've tweeted the link. Should be on the Sun website as well. So, yes, on the internet.
Lovely. We should look forward to your next victim, as they say. Thank you very much indeed. Kate Ferguson, political editor at the Sun on Sunday, the brand new show out there on YouTube. Kate's political lunch dates. You can also find Harry Cole there. Harry Cole Saves the West and his big interview with Boris Johnson, which you might find me on as well, doing a little bit of a critique afterwards. Let's do a quick migrant tracker number check, shall we? Channel migrants since Keir Starmer became Prime Minister, 55,425. Migrant numbers for 2025 only, since the beginning of January, 32,183. Channel arrivals for September, which, remember, hasn't actually finished yet, 3,180. Channel returns to France, 6. Let's cross to the BBC News.
Excuse me? I'm being told we don't have pictures of the moon, but look, seeing as we don't, here's what it looks like. There you go. An oldie but a goodie, right? Maybe not? OK.
Dear me. I know there's some cutbacks there, but crikey. You could have just held up a paper plate. Would have looked better, wouldn't it? That's what I would have done. Let's get a voice note from James.
Good morning, Mike, James and Bury St Edmunds. I'm very sorry to hear about your car yesterday. Now, you are a victim, Mike, because that piece of scum, whoever did that is lawless London now. And well done, Mr Khan, well done, Starmer. You are living in an absolute different reality than the rest of us. Absolute brain-dead clowns. I'm so furious with this, Mike. Anyway, enjoying, looking forward to Plank of the Week once again. Superb show, Mike.
James, thank you very much indeed. Yeah, I'm still trying to sort out the windscreens, the back screens scenario. We managed to get it covered up yesterday and probably weatherproofed it, but, you know, it was so much of a time waster, and that is the problem. I haven't even started having a conversation about how much it's going to cost, what the insurance is and all that, but, you know, trust me, rest assured, it will not be a drop in the ocean, that's for sure. Bridget Phillipson has put out a tweet saying, I've spent most of my life being underestimated. Yeah, well, hardly surprising, you know. You wouldn't want to overestimate Bridget Phillipson, would you? What a complete plank. 21 minutes past 7.
analogy is that basically Morgan McSweeney has served as the political brain of Keir Starmer now for 5 years, and of course if you remove the brain, the patient tends to end up dead. And so I think perhaps there's a sense that if they take out Morgan McSweeney off the back of Lord Mandelson and Angela Rayner as well, make it a hat trick, then I think that they'll be thinking, you know, Keir Starmer is a man walking wounded.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Morning Glory. It's coming up to very nearly 25 minutes past 7. I've got this from Peter, who says that in Croydon, morning Mike, he says, I've already emailed Rodney and told him he can stick his digital ID up his backside, sideways. And Stu in Hales Owen says, funny this comes out now when Starmer and McSweeney's backs are against the wall with this funding scandal. This ID plan has been thrown out there because they know very well the controversy will cause and shift the narrative away from the funding scandal. I think there's some truth to that, you know, because I don't think they've thought this through at all. And I think they know that the public outrage at it will make them forget all about what's going on inside Downing Street with this Morgan McSweeney secret slush fund. Let's get a voice note from Mark on ID cards.
Yeah, morning, Mike. It's Mark in Lancashire. There's absolutely nothing to worry about this digital ID, in my opinion. They couldn't even get the COVID app to work. They spent billions on it trying to get this thing to work. It never actually worked. The tracker part of it didn't work. These people are absolute fools and idiots who do these things. The people in the Home Office, the government, they're idiots. They're never going to get something so complicated as a national digital ID to work in this country. They can't even put 2 tracks down to build a railway. They can't do anything. They've got absolutely no chance of this. There's nothing to worry about. It's never going to happen. And if they do bring it in, it won't work.
Mark, you probably you've got some truth to what you say there, and I take your point that during COVID it was a complete shambles. But let's talk to Alan Miller, co-founder of the Together Declaration, because he has been campaigning against ID cards and digital ID for a very long time now. Alan, very good morning to you.
Good morning, Mike. Thanks for having me here.
No, not at all. Good to see you. I mean, there's some truth, I think, to the suggestion that this has all been thrown out there in haste, because I know they've been talking about it for a while. But looking at the detail of it, you know, there seems to be an awful lot of holes in it, right? I'm with you, and I take your points that you're going to make about the danger that this could possibly cause to our freedoms and our privacies, and I'm absolutely with you. But when you read things like, you know, will be subject to consultation as far as the practicalities of the scheme are concerned, including how it will work for those in the UK without a smartphone or a passport. Well, if it doesn't work, if you haven't got a passport, how's it going to work for the illegal migrants?
Exactly the case. This has got nothing to do with stopping illegal migrants, Mike. We know that in France, Italy and Germany, they have ID schemes and they have hundreds of thousands of illegal migrants that they're sending back or they're not stopping, and they have issues with them. The idea that the ID is going to stop them is preposterous. It's insulting. It is true that Labour Together's plan for a Brit card says that it will be till around 2027, and we know it would need to go through Parliament. There will be all sort of measures. Unless they did some mad emergency act, they can't just impose it like next week.
Yeah.
However, that's why it's so important now that we really thrash out all these key issues, because, you know, you say you're absolutely with me on these points on privacy, but I think if you say to the British public right now, if we can stop the boats and we can stop crime, would you do something? Those that aren't looking into all the detail of it may be minded to do it. You know, it's convenient, it's going to stop fraud, stop crime. But let's look at the numbers. Hundreds of millions of data breaches consistently across social media, and that's with people who are good at tech, not the government.
Right.
The UK wallet, we know that millions got on the NHS app just to get a GP appointment because you can't get that. And a bit like during COVID and lockdowns, they told us that these COVID apps, these vaccine passports, would somehow do something about COVID and lockdowns. No, what it would do is restrict us more and not have anything to do with the actual issue. And this is exactly the same again. It's on the one hand, it is an attempt to make a big news piece because there's a concern about Andy Burnham challenging Keir Starmer. There's a concern about funding that's come in with Labour together, we should say, the people who've put this forward with McSweeney. So there are concerns that Labour's got. They've got their conference. Mike, at the conference this weekend, togetherdeclaration.org and Farmers to Action are going to be doing a big rally. Farmers to Action have been rallying for a month across Britain. We've also got a campaign, a challenge against digital ID. We're going to be bringing our voices to Labour Party conference on Sunday, making sure everyone hears about it. The crucial things are these, Mike. Over the last year or two, we've discussed these things. Debanking, two-tier policing, people being imprisoned or having police come around their house because of social media posts. The questions of low traffic neighbourhoods and clean air zones where we've had bogus reports around net zero, and then we've had fines and surveillance of cars and limits and restricting them. All of these things underpinned by a central digital ID would just become far worse. Not just Graham Linehan arrested at the airport, but actually people being able to perhaps switch you off directly. We know that the CEO of the Bank of International Settlements has said, but the central bank digital currency using digital ID would be fantastic because we can track every transaction. In Britain, we don't want to be a papers, please society. Winston Churchill made that point in 1952, would set us free to get rid of a national ID system. And Tony Blair and the Tony Blair Institute has been trying to implement this for so long. And now Keir Starmer is so desperate, his party and his government are so split. And we're saying that everyone should get involved. Get involved with togetherdeclaration.org. We've got campaigns and protests around the country. People can lobby their MPs. Obviously, we've got a councillors vote again in May. It's going to be very important. And many are coming out, many from the centre, from the right and the left, as it happens, are all saying they're opposed to digital ID.
Well, we were saying earlier, Nigel Farage and Jeremy Corbyn sort of united against it, you know, which tells you something. But you know, I listened with slight incredulity and horror yesterday to Peter Cardwell's show. He had a guy called Ivan Sampson on, who's an immigration lawyer, a human rights lawyer, who was saying how important it is to stop these illegal migrants from coming into the country. But he also said, right, he said, now, if you've got one of these ID cards and you want to go shopping, you can go to Tesco's and you can buy your stuff and that'll be fine. But if you haven't got one, you won't be able to. And I'm going, hang on a minute. You know, what if you don't want one of these things? There's no suggestion of what would happen, whether there's a fine for not having one. There's a suggestion that there could be a fine if you don't update your details. But what on earth are we doing in a society if you're saying to people you won't be allowed to go food shopping unless you've got an ID card?
Absolutely, and it's being presented not just for food shopping at supermarkets, but for renting, for working, for a whole array of vital things. We're told it will really help with services. My mum's not using digital ID. Right. She has to go to the bank and do it all in an analog way. There are millions of older people. There are all sorts of other people who are not connected to digital ID, nor should we have to be. The idea that to engage and participate in society, you have to have biometric proof. And this is exactly the same argument about the Online Safety Act, Mike, right? They're saying it's to protect children, but what it will end up doing is, like in Australia, forcing all adults to have a digital ID biometric engagement just to log on to the public square now. And we've seen, even in the last week, Mike, Marks and Spencer's, Heathrow grounded. We've seen the 19,000 Afghanis, data breaches. We've seen them in New South Wales. We've seen them in Estonia, where they're saying, look how great it is. Millions of people's data breached. We've seen Ardar with 1.4 billion in India, where people are having their data sold. Right. It's a travesty for our privacy. The British public we must discuss this much more. We're all pushing back. We'd encourage everyone to get involved in togetherdeclaration.org. This is the key fight now for everyone in Britain. And as you say, it doesn't really matter whether you're left, centre or right. On this issue, we can all unite against it.
Totally, yeah. Yeah, I mean, because the cyber attacks alone, I mean, Jaguar Land Rover, in the paper today, we're being told that the government might have to go and buy a load of their spare parts just to keep them going, because they're apparently, they're literally sort of 1 week from collapse. They haven't made any cars for about 2 months, and then talking about not making any until the 1st of November. And that is the problem, as you say. I mean, these are people that understand tech, and they understand how the modern world of social media works. You know, the government, as Mark, our last voice note has said, are completely useless when it comes to this stuff.
Absolutely. So there's loads of concerns there. And let's look at what happened in Portugal and Spain when there was a a power cut. And we know with net zero, there are more and more concerns around blackouts and power cuts. How are people engaging? Are we just having things shut down and shut off? And the other concern is we've seen cancel culture. We've seen people being shut down from jobs and positions and pursued. Well, is it going to be that we've just got a government that doesn't like what people are saying? They're saying that's either Islamophobic or it's far right, as they've said about most of the British public now who are concerned about borders. And we get logged out of things. Maybe our carbon footprint is a bit too much with petrol, and we get stopped, we get fined, we get limit constantly surveyed and monitored, like the councils who want to fine people about not recycling properly in their bins. The whole idea of a big brother state, that we're a walking QR code, a barcode, just like with facial ID, none of this was in the manifesto. None of this was in any discussion in advance. This is a desperate attempt, Mike, to control and limit us. And we'd encourage everyone to get involved together and fight back on this.
Yeah, absolutely. Good to talk to you, Alan. Thanks very much indeed. Alan Miller, co-founder of Together Declaration. He's going to be up at the Labour Party conference, Liverpool. Go and join him if you wish to, but go and sign up with the Together Declaration as well. It's not about what side of the political divide you're on. It's about keeping this bleeding government at bay. When was the last time somebody came up to you and went, why don't we do this? Because, you know, it works really well in Estonia. No? OK, then. Tony Blair running Palestine with Hamas and his past record of going to wars. Is anyone else worried? Says Andy in Cornwall. And this from Rosemary says, Mike, you're correct. Starmer, the traitor, is trying to deflect the Morgan McSweeney problem and Mandelson inquiry by introducing digital ID cards. The illegal aliens breaking into the UK on boats find work and are paid cash. There's no NI or tax. There is one living nearby to me in an HMO who's been working at a care home for 3 years. He's paid cash and is claiming benefits. This was reported to the police and they weren't interested. He has 3 more illegals living in the HMO now working with him at the care home. I mean, this is going on all around the country, you know, and the government, I'm afraid, like everybody else, like the social services in this country, like the police, you know, what they do is they go after the people that they can easily catch. They don't go after the bad people, they don't go after the criminals, they don't go after the people working in the black market, they come after you. Because you've got an address, because you've got an ID, because you've got a bank account, and they're the easy people to find and to finger. They don't want to go after the bad people. That's why they've got drug dealers running the country. That's why we've got so many Turkish barbers. I mean, they know they're illegal. What do they do about it? Nothing. They just let them carry on. The sweet shops in Oxford Street, you know, selling American sweets for ridiculous amounts of money. You know, nobody buys them, but somehow they've got money. It's not difficult, this stuff, is it? Crikey. 7:36.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Morning Glory, 7:38. One here from Brian in Spain. He says, Starmer's saying he wants to spend our money in all these areas to improve them. Well, how about not dumping thousands of people into our towns and turning them into no-go areas? How can I have pride in my town when I'm afraid to take my granddaughters to town? Darryl in Blackburn. Mike, nothing screams Keir Starmer's patriotism like surrendering Chagos and surrendering our borders. Yeah, absolutely right. Now he claims he wants to somehow reclaim the flag. Steve says this, who will host this ID card data? The government? Are they going to build a load of new data centres or contract Microsoft to do it, who have the expertise in infrastructure? Great show, by the way. But let's get a voice note from Lee on ID cards.
Morning, Mike. Lee from Chelmsford. Digital ID cards will be a complete waste of time. By the time they roll it out, technology would have moved on, and whatever they say it's going to cost, they might as well treble it. I mean, Rachel Reeves has already borrowed £83 billion this year. How much is this going to cost? It's never going to stop illegal immigration. The only way you can do that is turning the boats back. Anyway, all the best.
Yeah, absolutely right. I don't think anybody's going to stop illegal immigration with ID cards. There's not a chance. And to say that, we've learned from Emmanuel Macron, who says that that's the way to stop illegal migration. Well, if that's true, then how come there's so many illegal migrants in France, where they have digital ID? We could ask Gavin Mortimer, French correspondent of The Spectator. Gavin, very good morning to you.
Morning, Mike. Yeah, I was just about to make that point, actually, listening to some of what you've been saying. There was about 1 million illegal immigrants in France. Crime is out of control. The North African drug gangs are running major cities. So, yeah, ID cards, clearly the way to go.
Yeah, I mean, apart from being the most unpopular man in France, Emmanuel Macron's played an absolute blinder. But I'll tell you what, Nicolas Sarkozy, the story broke when we were on the air yesterday. He's still got a bit of star power. He's on the front pages here in London. Daily Mail's got him on the front, given 5 years in jail. Will Carla Bruni be next? Times has got him on the front page as well. It's quite a story, this.
It is. I've got a piece in the Telegraph today saying that it's another example of France's red judges out of control. Yeah. Because don't forget, earlier this year, Marine Le Pen was disqualified from political life for 5 years. In 2017, the strong favourite to win the presidential election was Francois Fillon, who was a member of Sarkozy's centre-right party. And then very quickly, a story broke of financial impropriety, and that ruined his campaign. So there's really, and this is Sarkozy's line, that this is another example of a socialist deep state, which exists and runs most of the institutions. Politically, the socialists have imploded. They've only got 66 MPs, but since 1968 they've been marching through the institutions. They now control everything from the Supreme Court to the mainstream media, and they've never liked Sarkozy, and this is a culmination of a 13-year campaign to get him.
Right, and will they get him? I mean, I was hearing yesterday that he has to go to prison regardless of an appeal, which is a bit unusual. So he's likely to be locked up in any event, right?
Well, this is it, and this is one of the. So he was 4 charges. He was cleared on 3 of them, including embezzlement and corruption, but he was found guilty of associating with wrongdoers, and for that he's got a 5-year sentence, and it's something called an execution provisoire, which also was applied to Marine Le Pen, which means that the sentence has to be applied immediately, even if there's an appeal process. So often the sentence is suspended, sort of it's in limbo while the appeal is heard, that can last for some time, and it's normally used only for very dangerous criminals or terrorists who might flee the country. That's obviously not the case with Sarkozy or Le Pen, so it's another reason why the centre-right and the right see a socialist plot.
Are you suggesting that some of these charges don't stand up then? Because it says, I'm reading the piece here, February, Sarkozy was placed under house arrest for a year in order to wear an ankle tag after being convicted of trying to bribe a judge in a separate fraud case. He's also been given a 1-year jail sentence for illegally funding his failed 2012 presidential campaign, but has also appealed against that. And the main charges here is that he sent 2 diplomats, I think, to Libya to sort of negotiate some kind of financial deal with Gaddafi. Are you saying that that's a bit of a trumped-up charge?
Well, that's what he was cleared of actually taking any money, but he was accused of association with malfaiteurs, so with wrongdoers, so sort of conspiring, but not actually going through with it. Right. And again, the 5 years. I mean, there's no doubt that, as you mentioned his previous cases, that he has dubious ethics. But then he's not the first French politician.
He's a politician. I mean, let's face it.
Well,
You know.
exactly, yeah. So it's also about the 5 years, which is more than some of the people convicted of aiding and abetting the Bataclan terrorists in 2015 when they slaughtered 130 people. They got shorter sentences from that. And the left have never like Sarkozy, and it was mutual. During his presidency, he said there were too many judges of mediocrity, and there was a protest against him. It's also interesting that the judge who convicted him yesterday was the same judge who convicted François Fillon in 2017.
Fascinating. And what about the Carla Bruni sort of scenario? Is she likely to be investigated now? Is she next?
I don't think so, no. It's very funny. I don't know if you've seen the clip, Mike, yesterday, that when Sarkozy came out of the court after the verdict and he said this was a witch hunt and he was innocent, etc. Carla Bruni was next to him, and there were all the microphones there with their, those little foam heads with their radio stations or organisations. And she reached forward and took the Mediapart microphone. Mediapart is a left-wing newspaper that has really conducted this campaign against Sarkozy, and threw it to the ground. So that was clear that what she thinks of them. Several other people were in the dock with Sarkozy. Carla Bruni wasn't one of them, and I'll be surprised if she's convicted of anything.
Quite a story though. Fantastic stuff. Gavin, good to see you again. Thank you very much indeed. Gavin Mortimer, French correspondent of The Spectator there. Yeah, Carla Bruni, a bit of a temper on her. Don't think you want to cross her, would you? Morning, White. Love the show as always, says David. I'm just wondering if the public will be charged for these ID cards like they do passports. Very good point. I mean, I suppose technically if it's an app, which is what it sounds like it's meant to be, the app surely would be free, because that's what the NHS app is, I think, and that's what the other apps were during COVID. You didn't have to pay for them. But again, you just don't know. Somebody will be making money out of it, because even, remember when they used to say, when it comes to things like Facebook and Twitter and all the other social media platforms, it's you that is the actual, you're not the customer, you're the product. So what happens is that this data will be collected by the government and given to God knows who. I mean, we asked the question when Donald Trump was here, whether or not these data centres that we're getting supposedly implanted into Britain, tiny, tiny number, by the way, compared to how many are being put all over the place in America. But, in what regard have we given up some of our data in order for these American companies to come in and put their data centres here? Because it may well be that they'll have access to all sorts of personal and private information. And if we've got an ID card which carries that private information, Colin Sutton, playing off the former police detective, has put out on Twitter, will they include your fingerprints and your DNA? Well, they might do, and then who's got access to that? That's the problem. Anne from Kent says, as an older British citizen, this ID card world will exclude the elderly, as many do not want to embrace the digital world. And many of them wouldn't be able to anyway. Darryl from Lincoln says, Mike, actually Tony Blair running the Gaza Strait isn't a bad idea. If he does for them what he did here, then in 20 years they'll be flooded with immigrants, hopefully back from here. Yeah, it's not a bad thought, actually. It could completely ruin their economy as well by completely changing the way everything's done. Anne says this, regarding ID, 20 years ago I was working for a big company and can remember everybody had to take their passport into the office and have it photocopied as proof that we were legally allowed to work. This is nothing new. Well, some people do it, some people don't, right? Let's get a voice note from Phil.
Hey, Mike, Phil from Nottingham. ID cards, you know where they can stick those. But the person I want to lavish my praise upon is Tony Blair. I mean, my God, it's years since he's been Prime Minister and he's still running the country. Love him or hate him, and I'm no fan. Got to give it to him. Impressive work.
It's very true. I mean, how the hell, as I said earlier to Ray Pardo Mancu, how does a guy who, to all intents and purposes, yes, took part in a revolution in this country when he got in 1997, modernised Britain in such a way, changed the way that an awful lot of the institutions worked, completely reinvented the judicial system, invented the Supreme Court, completely changed immigration, managed to get people to come in here from the European Union, from Eastern Europe, from all sorts of parts of the world, to stock up on the education system, to completely manage the education system and turn it into a business so that millions and millions of people made a bucket load of money, and it was harder and harder for English students to go without getting into massive debt, to completely ruin the economy, leave it in tatters with Gordon Brown selling off all the gold at the bottom, cheapest price that he could get, and then to fail as a Middle East peace envoy, to fail to get a job as an EU commissioner, to now want to run the Gaza Strip. It really is quite remarkable. And in the background, by the way, run the current Labour government. Get his old mate Peter Mandelson made a US ambassador to the United States of America. Make sure that Andy Burnham gets back in to a cabinet position and possibly Prime Minister. Gets Keir Starmer to be the patsy for all of it. You know, gets Pat McFadden, the man who was in his own government, to be the enforcer in the new government. It's quite remarkable, the web that Tony Blair has created, which apparently cannot be broken down. He's also got Alistair Milburn back in as an advisor in the Health Department. I mean, the list goes on and on. I didn't even know I knew all this stuff, but I do somehow. 7:48.
Your name has been touted on a number of occasions as someone who might stand down to make way for Andy Burnham. Are you going to do that?
No, I'm not. The general election, I asked people in the constituency to support me. They did. And I intend to do a full term till the next general election, whenever that is. I think to do anything else for manoeuvrings within the Labour Party would be dishonest.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Morning Glory, 7:52. We are here, of course, until 10 o'clock. Mark Dolan in at 10 until 1. We've got a big weekend coming up as well, by the way. The Ryder Cup is on. We might bring you some of that over the course of the weekend. Massive, massive event in the world of golf. And, of course, Labour Party conference gets underway on Sunday, which is going to be like a viper's nest, I can tell you that. Communications chief quits Starmer, says Bill in Cheshire. Maybe she got sick of working for a robot, or maybe it just became too difficult fending off stories about people and young men from faraway lands. Well, I mean, the problem with all of the people at Downing Street is that they're all fighting like rats in a sack. They're revamping the whole communications section. They're bringing in more people from outside. They're hiring new people from inside. They're moving people around. And it all just looks like it's a very, very bad situation to be in. And a lot of people leaving the situation because they don't want to be associated with failure, because people don't like failure, generally speaking. Let's get a voice note from Laura.
Morning, Mike. Laura in Wiltshire. It's not often I want to send you a message before I've even had my first cup of coffee, but this authoritarian nightmare of ID cards will not solve any issues. We are not the problem. Imagine another scenario. The WHO announces a worldwide pandemic and a lockdown, and those with cards will be monitored. It is terrifying. We must fight against it with every fibre of our bodies. Resist and fight this. Great show, Mike.
Laura, thank you very much indeed. I think a lot of people will agree with that, particularly since we don't really know an awful lot of the detail and exactly how it's going to work. But let's talk about another app, because parents and carers are apparently being encouraged to use the NHS app because it's easy. It's apparently as easy as using Netflix, which actually isn't that easy. Dr. Steve Taylor is here, spokesman for the Doctors Association UK. Hi, Steve.
Morning, good to speak to you, Mike.
Good to see you. The NHS app's been around for a while. I mean, we hear a lot about it from the government. They say, oh, the NHS app is great. I mean, Lisa Nandy only last night on Question Time saying lots of people use the NHS app to book appointments. What's new about it now?
Well, the only bit that's new is that you can access it on behalf of somebody else. So that's the only bit that's slightly new.
Right.
Last week it was Amazon. This week it's Netflix. It's not as good as either of those, I think, would be the right way to say it. You can use it to book appointments, but there's only so many appointments, so therefore it's not that easy to use.
I mean, if you can't get an appointment at the GPs, you can't suddenly go on the app and get an appointment at the GPs.
No, exactly that. No, yeah, exactly.
You can just be refused in a slightly different way.
Yeah, I mean, don't get me wrong. I actually love the app. I use it a lot to access my own GP record. I can order prescriptions. I can have a look at my blood results and things like that. And I often, as a GP, will point my patients towards it to get access to their records, to have a look at the results and things like that.
Right.
The problem is it doesn't solve the ultimate problem, which is actually getting access to somebody like me. Which actually most people want. You know, we're short of GPs and we could do with more GPs. The app's fine. It works. 38 million users apparently.
Right.
So we're talking about ID cards a bit before. There's 38 million people already on this app.
I mean, can you make, say, a video appointment with a specialist via the app if you haven't been able to get
No.
Okay.
No. It's basically a GP interface.
Right.
You can see your letters.
I mean, I suppose you can avoid the harridan at the reception desk by going through the app, can you?
Oh yeah, that bit you can avoid, except that you're just filling out an online form, and the online form gets assessed by
Because I mean,
GP
the
practice.
complaint that I get most, to be honest, Steve, is you know how difficult it is to get an appointment, and two, once you've had the appointment, get the results from any test that you might have done, because they seem to take an awfully long time to process them, and I don't understand why that is, because I know people who have gone privately in various different ways, sometimes forced into it, not because they can afford it, and the private system seems to work a lot quicker.
Well, the appointment bit is going to still be a problem if you haven't got as many doctors as you need. The good bit, though, you can see your results. You'll be able to see those within 2 or 3 days. So particularly blood test results. Other results take a little bit longer because they come from the hospital. But once they're on their app, you'll be able to see them.
Yeah,
so
once they're on the app, then you can see them. But if they're not available, then you can't see them.
No, it goes directly on there. So once it's arrived at the GP surgery and been read, it goes straight onto the app.
And the other question, of course, is who else can see that and how safe is it in terms of being hacked? Because as we've been saying this week, there's been an awful lot of cyber hacking going on lately.
Well, yeah,
there's an awful lot of data.
There is a bit of worry there, isn't there?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, that is the problem. I mean, with all of these shiny new things that the government talks about, you always are slightly worried that anything being run by the government.
And the other thing is, as one of your callers mentioned earlier about the IDs, it's about it can be discriminative against old people, which is probably why they're trying to open it up to carers so that other people can access it for them.
Yes, I mean that again is open to sort of questions, isn't it, in terms of who's the carer, who qualifies to be the carer, and that kind of thing, you know.
Yeah, exactly, and in certain relationships where that's a really tricky relationship, a coercive relationship, then it can be a big problem.
Well, yeah, I mean if you've got some guy beats up his wife and she accesses a doctor's appointment to go and see about it, it might not end well.
No, and that is one of the worries of all this online access stuff, yeah.
Okay. Well, listen, good to talk to you, Dr. Steve Taylor.
You.
Thank you very much indeed. Spokesperson of the Doctors Association. Lots and lots of people talking about the big new poll that's come out in which it says that reform would be the clear new government. Absolutely no question at all. It's a new YouGov poll that came out just a few moments ago, an hour ago maybe. 13,000 people answering the poll. It's a specifically detailed poll about individual constituencies. It puts Nigel Farage very firmly inside number 10 on his own without any need for a sort of a coalition partner, because it means that they would be way far and ahead of everybody else, and that means that the Tory government of old has now completely collapsed. According to this poll, 45 seats is all they would get. We'll talk some more about that coming up in the next hour. We've got lots more to do, of course, between now and then. Joe in Thailand says this: most conspiracy theories don't just come from anywhere. There is usually an inkling of truth in them somewhere. Some of us were warning people of digital IDs in a cashless society years ago. It will definitely be the beginning of the very end of life as we know it, and no boats of illegals will be stopped via it. Anyway, off to adjust my tinfoil hat. Russell, it's a great show as always. Yeah, I mean, this is the trouble. The thing is, there's nothing to be said for digital ID particularly, certainly not in the way that it's going to stop any boats. I mean, why would it? How much will each digital ID cost, says Mike in Erith? Will we the people have to buy them, and how long will they be valid for? Visas show if you have the right to work, no passport, no stay. It's that easy. Love your show. Well, this is the other thing that, it says there's a couple of, various different sort of explainers in the papers this morning about how they might work. Nobody really knows for sure how they might work, because it looks as though the Labour government haven't really thought it through themselves. But it looks as though, for example, you would have to update your digital ID, and I presume that would be because either your visa has run out, or perhaps you've changed your status, you've become married rather than single, I don't know, and there's suggestions that if you don't update your ID, you might be fined. It's all very, very woolly, and nobody in the Labour government seems to know exactly how it's going to work. So God knows how it's going to work, is the point. But we'll take more of your calls. We'll be talking more about this terrible Labour government, all coming up after the news. Very good morning to you, by the way. Morning Glory with me, Mike Graham.
Just some breaking news for you coming out of Liverpool Crown Court.
Good afternoon. Welcome to the programme. Welcome to the home of common sense.
Loads to talk about, I promise you that. Loads and loads and loads.
Yes, it's me again, your genial host, Kevin O'Sullivan.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Morning Glory. It is, of course, the home of common sense. I'm Mike Graham with you all the way through until 10 o'clock. It's 3 minutes past 8. It's Friday, the 26th of September. Sometimes you wonder whether you're going to get it all the way through to the end of the week. This week's been particularly challenging, not least because I had my car broken into on Wednesday night, which is causing me no end of a bleeding headache. Also, a big piece been written up about me in the Mail on Sunday. Thank you for in the Mail, rather, Mail Online, I should say. Check it out. It's on my Twitter feed if you want to read it. It's turned into an attack on Sadiq Khan. But, of course, John Rentoul's coming up next. He's a man that tells me London's never been safer. So we'll talk a bit about that, no doubt. Since I've been a victim of crime this week, he might have changed his mind. Morning Glory podcast comes out just after this show ends, around about 10:15, 10:30 this morning. And, of course, Plank of the Week tonight. It's a very, very big one because there's so much going on. Labour Party conference kicking off on Sunday, of course. Andy Burnham continually wandering about telling people he doesn't want to be the Prime Minister, but people just keep asking him to challenge Keir Starmer. Very reluctant, of course, as he is. He's got his face on the front of the New Statesman, which is going to be distributed all over Liverpool. And he, of course, will think of himself as a homegrown boy, being an Everton fan, as the Mayor of Manchester. Digital ID, obviously big on the agenda this morning as well. A digital ID card scheme will confirm a right to work, it says on the front page of the Times. The Mail goes a slightly different route. The economy's moribund, socialism rules, police come knocking if you say or think the wrong thing. Now, in an authoritarian new plan that will make Britain even more like East Germany, citizens will be forced to carry ID cards. And then it has the headline, "Show us your digital papers." It doesn't actually say it in a German accent, but it seems like you should. Front page of the I paper actually asks a couple of interesting questions as well. It says the practicalities of the scheme are still unknown and will be subject to consultation, including on how it will work for those in the UK without a smartphone or a passport. I mean, it is extraordinary, isn't it, how this has come out of the blue. Some people are asking the question, is it all a bit of a smokescreen to try and cover the fact that Morgan McSweeney is closer to the end of his career than anybody has ever thought before? This morning in the Daily Mail, they're suggesting that on the very day the Electoral Commission told him he had to declare every single donation that he's getting for Labour Together, he got a £50,000 single donation and he didn't register it. And not only did he not register it on the day they told him to, he didn't register it the next day or the day after that. And in fact, it was over a year before he actually thought it was a good thing to declare. And it was more than 3 years before he declared all of it. My view yesterday was that Morgan McSweeney would not be long for his job in Downing Street. Now, I think this whole digital ID caper is a means of trying to keep him there for a little bit longer. We'll find out what John Rentoul has to say. Coming up a little bit later on in the hour, James Woodhousen joins us as well. Jamie Jenkins, independent statistician. There's more stats out on crime from the Office for National Statistics, and I'm sorry to say, it's up. 0344 499 1000 is the number. Much more to do as well. Jaguar Land Rover 1 week from collapse. Dearie me. This is Morning Glory. Let's get it on. Bish says this, Mike, great show. Watch every day on YouTube. Sat in sunny Turkey, watching from afar. The last 5 years as our once great country goes to the dogs. Michael says, great show. IDs on mobile phones, another good reason for phone theft. That's Mike in Bath. And Joanna from Salisbury says, Mike, ID cards follow the money apart from control. Who will pay for it? We will. Then what company will profit from rolling this out? Will it be the same company that designed the post office programme that's still working for the government? I haven't got anything to hide except my privacy. If they want to know, they can ask. A lot of people not very happy about this. Let's talk to John Rentoul and see what he makes of it. Oh, hang on, we've got a voice note first from Ken.
Ken here in Dorset. So we're to have ID to identify the already identifiable, but those we can't identify don't get any ID. Please make it make sense. Great show, Mike, as it ever is.
Well, I do wonder why they're giving ID to people who've already got work so that they can prove that they can work, but they don't want to give it to people who, for example, don't work to prove that they can get benefits. Or indeed, how do they give it to people with no ID who come from abroad illegally without passports so that they can tell who they are? I'm confused. John Rentoul can surely help me. Chief Political Commentator at The Independent. Good morning to you.
Good morning, Mike. I'm sorry to hear about that you're a victim of crime.
I know. Well,
this is very bad news.
It is very bad news, particularly since I paid £40 for the privilege of parking the car in an NCP car park. There's the picture there. Somebody has smashed the back window. And then, bizarrely, didn't really steal anything.
That is very odd.
It is very odd.
And, yeah, but it doesn't mean that that crime isn't down substantially over the past 30 years.
It doesn't, but I have got some ONS figures that I'll show you later. But I see, let's talk about ID cards first of all, because I'm not sure what you think about this, but I mean, well, ID card might do a lot of things, but I don't think it's going to stop illegal migration, is it?
Well, unfortunately for you and your producers, Mike, I happen to agree with you and those viewers.
We don't mind you agreeing with us. We like you agreeing with us.
Well, no, but it's more fun if we disagree, because then we can have a good old argument. But actually, I know I'm Tony Blair's biggest fan in this country, possibly with the exception of Cherie. But this is one issue on which I don't agree with him. I don't think digital ID is the magic answer to everything.
Right.
And I completely agree with that last voice note. The whole point, the whole issue is enforcement, not ID.
Right.
It is already the law that you cannot get a job or a house or be a tenant without proving your immigration status.
Right.
And people who've applied for asylum here, the people who are taken off the boats, they're taken to processing centres where their identity is established as far as it can be. But I mean, we do know who these people are, and so if we want. Yes, they've all got. I
don't think that's true, though, because a lot of them.
If you've applied for asylum status, you have to have established who you are. Even if you're making it up, even if you're pretending to be.
That's what I'm saying. But you mean all you know is who they say they are. You don't actually know who they are, which is not the same thing.
No, but you know that they're not entitled to work, and so therefore it is a matter of enforcement. If these people try to get a job, then they shouldn't be able to.
Right. But of course, that's the case already as well, because in most legitimate, organisations, you'll be asked for a national insurance number before you can be put on the payroll. And if you're going to work in some dodgy, scenario where nobody's going to bother and they're going to pay you cash in hand, which is what happens now, then that's not going to change, is it?
Or if you're going to, what presumably happens with these delivery riders is that they borrow somebody else's ID and use that. A digital ID scheme is not going to solve that magically. It might make it a bit easier to enforce, but enforcement is the key, not the ID.
But you've also pointed out in a tweet today, which is something I think I spotted, which is it's not compulsory for all adults. And the way that Keir Starmer's explained it is that he wants it to go to people who are working effectively. He doesn't mention people who are on benefits, because surely it would be more useful to have one that proved you could actually be entitled to benefits rather than be entitled to work, because that's another area of fraud, isn't it?
Well, absolutely. And I would have thought that, especially if you're applying for out-of-work benefits, you have to prove that you are able to work and that you're entitled to work in this country. So I would have thought, that's going to have to be clarified. I would have thought in the next few days.
Because we know from some figures that came out the other day that 1 in 6 claimants in universal credit is actually a foreign national. Now, it may well be that they're all entitled to universal credit, and that may well be fine. You can take a view on that, but it may well be that it's not fine, and it may be some of them may be claiming money that they shouldn't be getting.
Well, absolutely, and yes, you would have thought that an ID scheme, one of the benefits of it would be to sort out people's entitlement benefits as well. But again, as I said, it's not compulsory for everyone. But pensioners, for example, won't need to have it. Although I'm quite taken by the argument that you don't have to hunt around for a utility bill. That is one of life's most unappealing chores.
Yeah, but it's not it's not the most difficult thing in the world, is it? It's not like, oh my God, I can't do anything. I can't find an electricity bill.
No, but I don't actually have a libertarian objection in principle to the idea of ID cards. I ask whether it'll work or not, and I think it's not the key issue. The other thing about it is it's not a card.
No.
Despite this confident reporting that it was going to be an ID card for all UK adults, that's not what it is
no,
at all.
It's going to be an app, isn't it?
It's going to be on. Yeah, it's going to be an app.
Right. And if it's as successful as all the other apps the government have produced, then I don't think we've got anything to worry about, to be honest.
Well, no, that's not fair, Mike. I mean, the NHS app was a triumphant success. The rollout of
that depends on who you talk to. Well, I just spoke to a doctor about it who said that the problem with the NHS app is it doesn't do anything that the doctor doesn't do. And if you can't get an appointment on the doctor with the doctor through the telephone or online, the app doesn't make you get
no, you can't. You can't book an appointment with a GP through the app. Oh gosh, no.
Well, so what's the point of it then? So you can look at some details of your own personal, medical history, and so
yeah, it's quite useful for knowing which vaccinations you've had and all that.
Well, why can't you remember what you've had?
No.
Why not? How many have you had?
There are so many these days.
How many vaccinations have you had in the last month?
Well,
you have to check the app.
No, none. But flu and shingles and all the rest of it. All those vaccines.
Blimey. Anyway, listen, I don't even use the NHS app. I don't really use the NHS, to be honest. It's so useless. But, I mean, the other thing that I would say to you is, what about the business of this government hasn't really thought this through, right? Because when you see all of the various questions and all of the various papers today about what they haven't said, it seems to me that this is a very first stage suggestion, and they haven't got a model that they know they're going to use. They don't know. Lisa Nandy, in fact, let me play you Lisa Nandy last night from Question Time. She was asked about exactly what this app would do.
How will these digital ID cards work?
Well, one of the things that we're thinking about is whether to introduce digital ID, and we think there is some merit in this. The Prime Minister will say a bit more about this tomorrow, but we think that they offer two benefits. The first is that they'll be able to make sure that people are able to prove their right to be here, to work here legally very easily, which will then help us to deal with the illegal economy and stop people being undercut at work. But we also think there might be big benefits as well for citizens. If you think about the way that the NHS app has developed in recent years, and now you're much more able to do things like make GP appointments online and access your medical records, we think there may be benefits to the general population as well.
We think an awful lot about things, and we're thinking about doing this and we're thinking about doing that, but we're not really very sure exactly how it's all going to work. I mean, I put it to you that this is a bit of a smokescreen to keep Morgan McSweeney off the front pages.
Yeah, I did enjoy that conspiracy theory, Mike.
Well, it's true. It's worked, hasn't it? Because the Mail have had to relegate the latest story, which is just as good.
Absolute
the 50,000. It's a dead cat, isn't it?
No, it's
okay. All right, answer me this: when are they introducing this digital ID?
Over the course of this Parliament, I think.
That means before the end of it, doesn't it?
Yeah, no, that means
so at least 3 years away.
Yes.
Why are they announcing it today?
It is not unusual for government announcements to be half-baked. I mean,
certainly not this government. No.
This government has always fallen down on the preparation work. I think they didn't prepare for government, and now they're in government, they're not preparing for these sort of announcements.
Right, all right. Then would you concede that it might also take people's minds off the ridiculously poor returns programme, which has now counted up to 6 people who have gone to France since 2 weeks ago?
Oh, is it 6 now?
They've got an extra 2, went yesterday, yeah.
Oh, right. Well, but they're actually announcing them every day, are they?
No, that's the thing. They're not announcing them every day because they've got nothing to announce. So they don't actually announce them at all because they just kind of let it be known that I think there's an Afghan yesterday and somebody from Sudan has gone back. So
this is all progress, isn't it, Mike? I mean, if you can do 6, then you can do 1,000.
Well, that's what you keep telling me. But they can do 1,000. But the thing is, they're coming the other way. The 6 going out, 1,000 coming in. That's the thing. That's the way it's going. But let's talk a bit about McSweeney, because I think quite a big story in the Mail today. £50,000 donation in one go he received on the very day that the Electoral Commission told him he had to declare every single donation. And not only did he not declare it...
very big story, Mike.
Well, I think so.
It's an old story.
Not only did he not...
It's been recooked with a little bit of timetable added.
Yeah, but with a few more details added, I think you'll find. This particular detail says that he did not only declare the donation on the day, but that he basically didn't declare it for more than a year. And it was only 3 years later. So he deliberately didn't do something which he's supposed to do by law.
That is the story that was reported 4 years ago, Mike.
No, it wasn't, because we didn't know about the money. We didn't know about the influence.
Yes, we did.
Hang on. We didn't know about the influence of Labour Together. Labour Together basically are the people who have been bankrolled by your lot, the Blairists, right? They're the people who have come up with all of these ridiculous ideas for digital ID. It was their policy in June. It's now government policy. Labour Together is the shadow government, in my view.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, it was the shadow Labour Party at the time.
Right. So don't you think that because they're being, shall we say, economical with the truth, that they deserve to be investigated by the police?
No, they were investigated by the Electoral Commission 4 years ago.
Yes, and they were fined.
And they were fined £14,000, which is actually that's quite a stiff fine.
It's not a bad fine. However, they didn't know everything that we know.
Then,
but as Keir Starmer said on the Peter Mandelson case, you know, if I'd known then what I knew now, then something else would have happened. And if the Electoral Commission had known about this 50,000, they might have taken a different view.
They did. That 50,000 is one of the is part of the 739,000 total, which the Electoral Commission told off Labour Together.
So you agree that Morgan McSweeney broke the law then?
Yes, they
you agree that he broke the law?
They broke electoral law and paid a fine. Yes.
Well, that's the law, isn't it? Electoral law is the law.
Yes.
Right. So
but that was all dealt with 4 years ago. It's been reported in various different ways ever since. But
it has.
The essential facts remain the same.
Reported by you just the other day that he was on his way out, wasn't it?
Who?
McSweeney.
McSweeney.
You wrote a piece that said, "Is Morgan McSweeney the government's weakest link?" And is he about to be?
That was a question to which the answer is no. The Morgan McSweeney is vulnerable because the right-wing press are out to get him, obviously. Because
he's vulnerable because the left. No, he's vulnerable because the left. No, hang on. He's vulnerable because the left-wing backbenchers in the Labour Party don't like him, and they don't like what he's done to the party.
Well, there's that as well.
Yeah, that's quite an important bit, I think.
Yes, but it's mostly the anti-Labour press that are trying to push this story and hoping to get him out. But I mean, they're going to have to find something new.
Well, I don't know, because I think this has got the stench of hanging around for too long type story. You remember Alistair Campbell saying when you become the story for more than 6 days, it's time to walk away. He's already passed that test. He's already been the story now for more than 6 days. He hasn't really adequately answered some of the questions. Neither has Keir Starmer. And also, what has come out, as I say, from all of this is that Keir Starmer's leadership bid had an unfair financial advantage over all the other candidates.
I don't know that his leadership bid had. No, I mean this is Labour Together. They were they were separate from his leadership campaign.
Yeah, but they weren't though. That's the point. You know, Morgan McSweeney said it was all separate. Said that he was being paid by the leadership fund rather than by Labour Together. But it all meshes into one. This is what I'm saying. It's all very murky, is it not?
Well, yeah, no.
It's not very clever.
It was dealt with. It was dealt with at the time.
We'll have a little bet, shall we?
They were fined £14,000.
We'll have a little bet that he's gone at some point, much more before he would like to go, I think, and it will come. If they want to keep him over the course of the party conference, that's up to them, but I don't think it's going to do Starmer any good.
I think he'll still be the Prime Minister's Chief of Staff by the end of next year.
End of next year? OK, I'll take that bet. I'll take a £10 bet with you.
No, 50p is my maximum.
50p, OK, fine, 50p. Well, 50p won't be worth 50p.
I don't bet on politics.
If you make it £10 now, it'll be worth 50p at the end of next year. Because you've got a massive crash coming, according to some political commentators. Let's talk a little bit as well about Tony Blair and his new job. He wants to be the guy that runs Gaza, apparently.
Yeah, no, I saw that headline in the Telegraph this morning saying Tony Blair to run Gaza.
Yeah.
I mean, I know he's trying to advise people on how Gaza can be governed by someone other than Hamas.
Yeah, and funnily enough, he's had a look round and he's decided the best person to run it is him.
That does seem a bit unlikely. I haven't seen the details of the story, but no, he's engaged in negotiations with a lot of the Arab countries around about the future governance of Gaza. And, it's a very tricky problem.
Yeah.
And I think he's probably quite well qualified to have some good ideas about it.
Well, he might have some good ideas, but apparently he wants to kind of supersede the Palestinian Authority. That's seemingly what he wants to do. It says he wants to head an interim government in Gaza on a proviso that power would eventually be handed over to the Palestinian Authority, which controlled the Gaza Strip until 2006. So he's effectively, I suppose, saying that he's going to try and push Hamas out of the way. And, I mean, who knows? Is he going to take Alistair Campbell with him and Peter Mandelson? I mean, is he going to get the old band back together?
Well, there are some very difficult jobs in the world, and that is one of them.
It certainly is.
Perhaps these clever people can apply themselves to it. But I wouldn't have thought he's actually going to lead the government. I think that would be a really weird idea.
It would be mad, wouldn't it? No, but he's basically said that he's got the support of Jared Kushner, Donald Trump's son-in-law, and he's got former Middle East advisor and Steve Witkoff, the US President's special envoy, have all agreed with him that Sir Tony is willing to sacrifice his time to end the war. Is that nice of him?
Well, he did actually devote 7 years of his life to being the envoy to the Middle East.
Yeah, how did that go? Peace envoy, they called it, but it turned out there was a lot more war when he left.
Well, it's a very, very difficult situation. He was trying to build up the Palestinian authority to a point where it could assume statehood, but of course Hamas made that impossible.
Yeah. Now, I'm just going to end because I'm being told we have to leave now. So we'll be able to finish, I hope, on a note of disagreement. This would be on the ONS data crime stats that have just come out from 2016 to 2024, right, by population. So this is going back a good 9 years. Overall crime up from 84.6% to 84.6 offences to 106.4 offences per 1,000 population. Violence against the person up from 19.8 to 26.5. Sexual offences up from 1.8 to 3. Theft up from 42.3 to 53.5. Robbery up from 2.6 to 3.8. Shoplifting up from 5 to 10.6. Theft from a person up from 4 to 11.6. Knife and sharp instruments up from 105 to 169. And homicide, you might be able to cling on to this one, level at around 100 murders a year.
Yeah.
That's
that's
the scores on the doors.
Yeah, I don't recognise those figures. I mean, those are new ONS figures today, are they?
Those are from the Office for National Statistics.
Yeah, but what are they? Are they police recorded crime?
Are they police recorded crime?
Yeah.
Yes, of course they are.
Yeah, well, that's no good, is it, Mike? Because what you need is the crime survey for England and Wales.
No,
which actually surveys
we
the
have
whole
this argument
population.
all the time. You can't say that actual statistics are less important than the survey of what people think.
Yeah, no,
that's what you're saying.
It's what people say happened to them over the previous 12 months. Now, that's the most important. That's the gold standard on crime reporting. What the police actually record depends on what the police's policies are at the time, what law changes there have been, and what people's attitudes towards crime have changed.
Okay. Well, here's this. All right.
Those figures, if they're police recorded crime, I'm afraid they're
probably
not useless. They're relevant.
Well, they'll be underestimates.
They don't give you a good idea of the trend.
But they'll be underestimates, John, because people don't record.
Well, of course
crime.
they will, yes, but you're talking about the trend over time, Mike. You're not talking about the absolute quantity.
What I'm saying,
you're saying it's gone up.
Well, that's what I'm not saying it. I'm not saying it. The Office for National Statistics is saying it. Those are called statistics.
The police are saying it, I think.
The Office for National Statistics don't publish incorrect data. Are you saying that the Office for National Statistics is not credible?
It can be correct, but it doesn't tell you the trend.
Well, let me give you this then.
Because police recording practices change over time.
Yeah, but they don't.
As we know, especially on sensitive issues.
Yes, but hang on. They don't record.
Offences, where police recording is much better than it used to be.
Yes, but they
therefore that does not represent an increase.
But the point is that they don't over-record incidents, do they? They don't over-record things. They under-record them because still a lot of people don't record crime. How about this?
But they record more crime than they used to. So in a lot of cases.
Well, ask me if I reported my crime.
Well, of course you reported your crime.
No, I haven't.
Haven't you?
No.
Well, you put that picture up on screen and you haven't even reported it.
I haven't had time to report it, but too busy trying to get a bleeding car fixed. Now, I may report it.
But you're going to.
Well, it depends. It depends on whether I need to report it or not, because there's no point in reporting it other than wasting my time on a police website and hearing nothing back from them. They won't investigate it. There's not really any point. But let me read you this from the Crime Survey of England and Wales, which I think is what you say is more accurate, right?
That is more accurate.
Okay,
yes.
So according to the Crime Survey of England and Wales, concern about crime on a national level, when it first asked whether there is a little more or a lot more crime than 2 years ago in 1996, 75% of respondents said yes, but last year that rose to 82%. So 82% of people now think there is more crime than there was 2 years ago, according to your blessed crime survey of England and Wales.
So people are more fearful of crime.
So there is more crime then?
No, that's not. That is absolutely not the case. There is actually much less crime than there used to be.
So even though the Office for National
people are more
Statistics...
afraid of it, and I don't know why that would be. It could be because of programs like yours reporting.
Oh, because I'm causing them fear.
And scaring people.
Yeah, that's right. By telling people I've been the victim of a crime, I'm causing them fear. So according to you, despite the fact that the Office for National Statistics says that crime is up, despite the fact that the Crime Survey of England and Wales says that people are more concerned about crime...
Yeah, but what else does the Crime Survey of England and Wales say? It says that crime is down by a huge amount over 30 years.
No, it doesn't have figures.
Yes,
You've said that before. It talks about how people feel about crime.
Yes, but it also talks about people's experience of crime, and that has gone down by a vast amount.
No, it hasn't.
Since 1995.
It really hasn't.
It has. Yeah, I'm afraid it has. You just haven't read out those figures.
The Crime Survey of England and Wales doesn't say... Anyway, listen, we can't go on like this. It's absolutely outrageous. Otherwise, people would say it's another crime has been committed. But at least we managed to disagree on something anyway, so all's well with the world. Thank you, John. Have a good weekend. Are you going to Labour Party conference, by the way?
Of course.
Excellent. We'll see you up there. John Rentoul is going up to the Labour Party conference. I'm not going up there because I haven't got a car back window, frankly. This is Talk.
Of course, this all started under Tony Blair. All of this massive, I think, outrageous policy of open borders effectively is what we've had since those years. The Conservatives promised in every manifesto in all those elections, with all the different prime ministers we had, to do something about this.
Bring it down to the tens of thousands net migration.
We failed to do it. Any prime minister, I think, in modern times who saw the importance of protecting British borders and limiting immigration was Mrs. Thatcher.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Morning Glory, 8:31. I'm Mike Graham. Oh, blimey, that was fun, wasn't it? James Woodhousen's here, a commentator at Spiked. We'll talk to him in a moment about the state of the nation, the state of play that we're in here. ID cards to control illegal immigration, says Leslie. A bit rich seeing as Blair opened our borders to uncontrolled immigration. I've also been handed a rather nice gift. It's Keir Starmer back in 2020, right, a piece in The Guardian, saying how much he's against digital ID for voting purposes. He doesn't want people to have voting ID cards, but he does want people now to have just regular ID cards. He said it will somehow exclude a lot of members of society from being able to do anything. Doesn't seem to be worried about that. Tony from Ruislip says, Mike, there has been little mention that another number 10 media person, Steph Driver, has left her post. This makes 4 media personnel leaving number 10 in the past 6 months. If you add the number of ministers who have left the government, it means that they managed to lose more staff than they've removed illegal immigrants. Very true. In fact, there's been more members of Keir Starmer's inner circle leave the organisation of Downing Street than 6 people have been sent back to France. So that tells you something. They're shaking up their entire media outfit and they keep moving people around. And it's a bit like deck chairs on the Titanic, to be honest. Absolutely wrong. James Woodhousen's here, though, commentator on Spiked Online. A school in Shropshire earlier this week was closed due to a fire, and the initial information indicates the fire may be linked to solar panels. This is according to the school themselves. It's not believed at this time that the fire was deliberate. Well, here we are with another situation where you've got electric cars that go on fire, electric buses that go on fire, solar panels that go on fire, and yet there are still people out there who think the government's solar panel scheme is a good thing. James, very good morning to you.
Good morning.
Good to see you. I'm slightly concerned about Ed Miliband for all sorts of reasons, not least because he doesn't seem to have any clue about the dangers of some of the new, shall we say, green energy initiatives that we've got going on.
Well, I think it's right that there are fires around electric cars and even solar panels. The incidents, Mike, I think you'd agree, very, very small. And the bigger problem with Miliband's initiatives is that he's trying to put solar panels on NHS hospitals and on state schools. And if you do the maths, which is, very easy and quite different from the statistics for fire, you'll find that they are sprinkling maybe 3, 5, 11 schools with panels and 5 NHS sites with panels. And this is absolutely nothing compared with the number of schools, 20,700 in England and Wales, state schools, and 1,140 hospitals. So putting in some photovoltaics on roofs in these sorts of institutions in the numbers that they're doing will do absolutely nothing for secure, reliable, cheap energy supply for these important institutions.
No.
Ed Miliband, if you please, says that, across the country, they'll be installing this. That's not true of 5 or 8 installations. And he even has the nerve to say, across the country, operating theatres in hospitals will be run by solar power. Well, I'd rather he went under the knife than I did.
Right.
As everybody knows, solar is intermittent and battery storage is just in its infancy.
Yeah.
So, the real danger to safety is power cuts, independent of solar panels.
But that's
we're going to get anyway.
But that's the other problem, is they don't ever mention the amount of money that they're spending on all of this, because what's also going on, and you may or may not know this, but in an awful lot of social housing around the country, councils are installing heat pumps, they're installing solar panels, they're installing all manner of kind of, green energy devices without really asking anyone, more or less kind of forcing them upon people who live in those places, redoing their radiator systems and spending an absolute bucket load of money that they supposedly don't have because they're all going bankrupt.
Well, this is right. Ed Miliband must think we are really stupid, because the headline figure is investment of 180 million across both schools and hospitals. And that sounds like a lot of money, but you only have to do a bit of long division or work out a percentage. The budget for the NHS in 2023 was £239 billion. Billion pounds. The budget for these solar panels is 180 million. So do the maths, right? It's 1,000th of the UK NHS budget is going to be spent on pretty ropey and certainly intermittent power supplies.
Yeah.
So, but I think I took a closer look at this, Mike, if I may.
Yes.
you look at the Great British Energy website, the only press release that they've issued since July was one in September announcing strategic priorities for the whole, for Miliband and Great British Energy.
Yeah.
So they're not doing anything. They haven't done anything since their creation.
No. Great British Energy is one of those great organisations which literally might have been set up by the Wizard of Oz. You know, there's a bloke called Jürgen Meyer who runs it, who used to run Siemens, right? Yeah. There's a fantastic interview that he only ever did one interview up in Scotland with this guy, reporter up there from Aberdeen, and he says, nothing to do with me about the price of energy. And then when I ask him, you know, he's got literally no office. He's got a sort of one-person porter cabin in Aberdeen. He goes there about once every 3 months. He lives in Manchester. He's got another office somewhere. Doesn't do anything. He doesn't have anybody working for him. It's a complete shambles.
Well, that's right. If you look at the personnel on the board, you've got Francis O'Grady, ex-head of the TUC. You've got Chris Clark, ex-head of the Climate Change Committee.
Yeah.
So, you know, could they be packing the meeting just a little bit, our Labour friends?
Oh, I think so.
Why is it I can't read on Great British Energy's site, or anywhere actually, what the wattage is, the capacity, the wattage, and the kilowatt hours produced from one of these solar installations in either schools or hospitals. They don't talk about megawatts or kilowatts.
No.
Right? We're just supposed to believe that 180 million pounds is going to, you know, assure us safety when we're on.
No, all they do at Great British Energy is basically siphon public money out of some account or other, which has been given to them, and then hand it to some private company to do something which they think is relatively green, and that's it. They're almost like a sort of, you know, they're sort of like a fence for green energy.
Yeah, it's all part of the blob, and you don't know what they're doing. They don't tell you what they're doing. It's all the usual suspects.
Yeah.
And just while we're on the stats, I'm sorry to bore you with this, but how many solar jobs do you think, Mike, jobs around solar power exist in the UK? What would be your guess?
I would say less than 1,000.
No, that's a bit unfriendly. It's 13,000.
Okay.
Right, and some people believe, Labour, of course, that I think by 2035 there'll be 60,000. I doubt that.
But doing what though?
Solar.
Doing what exactly?
Installing, repairing, cleaning the bird muck off them,
right,
and all of that. But even at 60,000, that's some jobs, but it's not very much to solve the growing unemployment problem in this country.
But also, where are they getting these panels from? Because Ed Miliband promised us that you wouldn't get them from China, where they might be being produced by enslaved Uyghur Muslims and various other people who are being, you know, forced down to labour camps to make them.
Well, that's right. You know, China's dominating all aspects of green energy. Therefore, anybody around the world, therefore anybody, you know, buying solar panels and so on, is going to largely buy them from China, where the conditions are rough, if not terribly rough. So that's just not part of Miliband's moral universe. You know, what counts is the headline figure of 180 million, so he can go to the COP conference, the Congress of the Parties, the annual jamboree about climate change, and say, look what I've done to his peers. Right. I mean, he just is not with us in the same country, and he doesn't intend to be with us.
No. By the way, a bit of breaking news for you on the GB Energy front. Apparently they've got a new job available, which they're advertising on their website, Head of Environmental Sustainability. You should apply.
Oh, yeah, well, they must.
You should apply. It's in Aberdeen. Here's the job description. Role will play a critical part in advancing GB Energy's ambition to become a global leader in clean energy delivered in the most low-carbon, circular and nature-positive way possible.
I wonder if nature positive is, you know, infectious.
What a load of old cobblers is what I would say.
It's quite incredible. And, you know, we're used to smoke screens from Keir Starmer, but when you're in person, but when you're writing it down with that amount of verbiage, you know, which is meaningless, what they ought to be thinking about is in the possibility of power cuts around general NHS and the schools.
Yes.
Have they bought enough diesel-powered generators? Yes, diesel, you know, the smoky stuff.
Yeah.
Because if they haven't, there's going to be real havoc. And I don't see any plans for that coming from our anti-fossil fuels.
No, it's an absolute shambles. Absolute shambles.
Human life or kids' education or freezing yourself in a classroom in the winter is of no moment to them, because they have a mission which is to save us all. Thanks very much.
I know, brilliant, isn't it? So fabulous. James, great to see you. Thank you very much indeed. James Woodhausen, commentator at Spiked there. Let's get a voice note from Judith on ID cards.
Good morning, Mike. It's Judy from Altofs, West Yorkshire. All this wanting identification for every adult in the UK. Well, this is one adult that's not going to have it. You give governments an inch, they'll take a yard. It'll be just, oh, we only want your name and address and your NHS number, and then they'll keep adding things on and adding things on. Then it'll be your bank account, and next time you upset the government, they'll be freezing it, just like they did in Canada. All them lorry drivers were complaining about lockdown, so they froze all the bank accounts. I'm not giving anybody any information that they don't need. Thank you.
I always say that to people. Do not volunteer information to people they don't need and they haven't asked for. Just don't bother. John says, this, Mike, is a rare event. An electric car fire. I drove through a crossroads last night, came back 20 minutes later, and saw the burned out shell of a mini EV. No sign of the driver. Maybe he went up in smoke. Traffic diverted, police in attendance, fire brigade come and gone. Chaos. It is an issue. I think it probably happens more often than we know, to be honest. Maybe I'll have you report in on as my sort of team of eagle-eyed, reporters out there. Mark in Croydon says, morning, Mike. Aren't employers supposed to carry out checks when employing people anyway? I know. I have when employing in my office, so these ID cards won't solve that. Who really wins if we all have ID cards? Well, I think you know the answer to that. The bleeding government. Let's talk to Jamie Jenkins, independent statistician, of course, a man that knows a thing or two about the ONS, unlike John Rentoul. Jamie, very good morning to you.
Good morning, Mike. How are you doing?
Very well indeed. I don't know if you heard our conversation with John Rentoul. He doesn't seem to think that the ONS statistics are worth the paper they're written on. Don't know what to say about that, really. But what about this ID card business? Because it seems to me that there's no real positive kind of process that the government have gone through. First of all, they haven't asked anybody's advice. Second of all, we haven't discussed it. Third of all, it doesn't appear that they're going to be required for every adult in the country. So what exactly is it going to be?
Yeah, so pretty much what you summed up there, Mike. So let's look at the evidence of ID cards across Europe. That's probably a good place to start. So Germany's got digital ID cards, and there's reports in Germany that there's a rising illegal working going on at the moment, putting that down to higher taxes, because obviously they're taxing their public like they're doing in the UK. So if someone wants to cut illegal working, I think cutting taxes is one way of doing it. Now, Italy, they've got digital ID cards. They've had about 50,000 people arrive by boat this year. So it's not stopping the boats. It's nearly 1 million since 2015. Now, they've had ID cards since around 2001. They've gone more digital in the more recent years, but that's not stopping the boat. And Greece is a good one as well, Mike. So Greece has got digital ID cards. And, a few months back, they had to bring in this temporary thing where they were going to lock people up who were coming on small boats. And then in Spain, just to round off a few more countries, they estimate about 30,000 people are working illegally in agriculture in Spain, and they've got digital ID cards. So the thought of a digital ID card is going to stop the boats or stop illegal working is for the birds. And I'm kind of with you. This has probably been put out there ahead of conference to get everybody talking about this, rather than the dire state of the UK economy and the Starmer and Reeves. Well, exactly. As I said to Gavin Mortimer, because he's, Emmanuel Macron's apparently been telling Starmer, you've got to get, digital ID cards in order to stop the immigration problem. Whereas France, as he said, is overrun with North African drug gangs, overrun with immigrants, and they've got an ID card system, and it hasn't made any difference at all. No, and Starmer talks about smashing the gangs, Mike. You look at the ONS figures in the last 12 months on drug-related deaths. They're the high records, I think record highs in England and Wales. So if governments are good at smashing gangs, why are drug deaths so good? I think, there's no merit to this digital ID card. I think last night, what's her name, Fiona Bruce, there's reports saying that the majority of the public support this. She asked the audience on Question Time to put your hand up if you support it. There were hardly any hands up going whatsoever. But this is another sort of shibboleth that these governments come out with, isn't it? There's great support for this idea. It's the same as Sadiq Khan when he comes out and goes, there's great support for low traffic neighbourhoods. No, there isn't. There's support from people who think it's a good thing because they're ideologically wedded to it. But if you ask the people who live where the LTNs are, they hate it. Yeah, and you can play a good statistical trick here with polling as well, Mike. So if you ask people, would you support a digital ID card to stop illegal migrants? They'll probably say yes. Right. But if you then tell them all the facts that I've just told you, you probably get the answer, it's not going to actually stop it. Exactly. So the answer would be no. So government can get any answer they want with any question that they're asked. Yeah. Except they won't allow us to have an actual debate about it, and they won't have an actual debate about it in Parliament, because there hasn't been one, right? No, and this isn't going to come in quick overnight anyway, Mike. No. But even thinking, could the government this government, everything's been a shambles. Remember the vaccine passports as well.
Yeah.
They said, right, you need to show your vaccine passport to go into nightclubs. And what did they then do? They closed the nightclubs because COVID rates were going up. So that had absolutely no impact. So the thought that the government could bring this in, run it, get it in perfectly, on time, on cost, is for the birds as well. So I think they're talking about this one, Mike. Do you think we'll ever see it?
No.
I don't think the government's going to be around long enough to actually implement it.
Well, whenever you hear those words, over the course of the next Parliament, you just basically know it's going to be kicked in the long grass and nobody's ever going to do it. They haven't got the money, they haven't got the wherewithal, they haven't got the expertise, and even if they were able to get it up and running, they haven't even told us who's going to be giving it. And I mean, the idea that they say that people without a passport won't be inside the scheme. Well, how are you going to then track illegal migrants who don't have passports?
Yeah, and there's a bizarre news report on the BBC last week, Mike, as well, where
there's a lot of those.
Migrants said that the one-in, one-out scheme, so these are migrants in France telling a BBC reporter the one-in, one-out scheme won't work because they don't have passports or ID cards, as if, OK, let's bring them in. People who come to the country illegally or people who want to work illegally, Mike, they will not care about an ID card.
No, of course not.
They just won't do it in the first place. So the government going down this road, absolute nonsense, Mike. I think you're on the right side of history on this one.
I think so. Well, it's as usual, right? It's like telling somebody shoplifting from a shop, you're breaking the law. And they go, yeah, they just carry on. Of course they're breaking the law. They know they're breaking the law. That's why they're doing it.
And the thing with these digital ID cards, Mike, people talk about conspiracy theories about mission creep. Well, you can get a lot of mission creep. I think the voice note you just played from Judith there, that when you start bringing digital ID cards in, they might start bringing digital currencies in, beginning to start putting restrictions on in terms of what you do. So this could be the start of a slippery slope towards that. But if the government's intent is to do what they say, as a statistician, Mike, I'd like to see the evidence that this would stop illegal working and stop the boats. Until there's any evidence for that, the actual firm basis of what they're saying they're doing it for doesn't even stack up.
Exactly. There is no evidence. There never will be. Jamie, great to talk to you as ever. Jamie Jenkins, independent statistician. This from Emma, who says, my friend lives in social housing and just had solar panels. However, as they have no battery storage, you only get the benefit during the day when she is at work. Also, her landlord takes that electricity that's not used and sells it back to the grid, so everyone else is making money and she's still having to pay for her electric. Madness. Exactly. And one from Simon, he says, if green energy was real and actually worked on this scale, millions of British people would see a considerable drop in their electric bills each month. And guess what? They're not going down, they're going up. Let's get a voice note from Matt.
Morning, Mike. Matt in Hove here. Does two-tier Keir, the absolute turnip, does he actually think the British public are complete mugs? As if a digital ID is going to stop channel migrants coming over from France. Like there's thousands of Eritrean, Somalian lads in the Calais jungle going, you know what? If we don't get that digital ID, we're not going to be able to check into our 4-star hotel on the day that we arrive. Or when they're all sitting around town centres smoking, leering at women, they're thinking, we won't be able to pop into the estate agents there and rent a 3-bed house without that digital ID. Is it worth going over? I mean, for Christ's sake, they're coming over, they get everything for free, and they don't have to go through any checks whatsoever. So they don't need any ID.
Of course they don't need any ID. And why would they be given any ID? You don't know who they are. They come in here without a passport. They come in here without ID. What's your name? Mohammed. Where are you from? Sudan. Where are you going? Leicester. You got a brother there? Yeah. Here's some digital ID, mate. Good on you. What a load of cobblers. 10 minutes to 9.
there are two real priorities for us now. The number one is the economy, and making sure that we shrink the size of the state spending.
It's not a question I asked, but is Nigel Farage a threat?
And the second, the second is defence and national security, and the threat of Russia. And on both of those, I have very serious anxieties.
And Nigel Farage is a threat to national security.
I'm putting it in Diplo speak, right? I have serious anxieties.
You're a former journalist. I want it as an intro, not diplomatic waffle.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Morning Glory, 8:55. I'm Mike Graham with you all the way through, of course, until 10. Aaron says, morning, Mike, in Belfast. Morning. Regarding the one in, one out, I would like to know the family of three that came in, where they're living. Have they been put up in a hotel, or have they gone out on the top of all lists and been given a house already? Well, I asked that question the other day. Nobody actually knows. Tony from Sussex says, morning, Mike. I totally agree with you. This is just a distraction from the McSweeney debacle. Great show, as always. Yeah, well, we'll figure out what's going on, I'm sure, over the course of the next couple of days. But mark my words, I don't think this digital ID is all it's cracked up to be honest. But let's have a look now at doing 90 minutes in 90 seconds with the Sun.
90 minutes in 90 seconds from the Sun.
As ever, a big weekend coming up. Bigger than ever, though, this weekend, because it's the start of the Ryder Cup. Absolutely incredible stuff. Rory McIlroy leading the charge, saying to his European teammates, prove you're the greatest side in Ryder Cup history. By retaining the trophy on American soil. Let's talk to Martin Blackburn, who is, of course, the Northwest sports reporter for The Sun. Martin, very good morning to you.
Good morning, Mike. How you doing?
Always a good weekend when the Ryder Cup gets underway. It's getting tasty already over there, isn't it?
It is, yeah. I mean, the big thing is, Mike, Rory McIlroy is saying there that this is a great chance for them to make history. The hosts have always won the Ryder Cup for the last five times. It was 2012 in Medina last time. One of the visiting sides won, so a real chance for Europe to go there and do something. And that's why America start as slight favourites, because of that home advantage. But yeah, Europe believe they can do something this time.
Yeah, and it's Bethpage Black they're playing, isn't it?
It is, yeah. So on the outskirts of New York there, and it's going to be a very boisterous crowd. So that's why the feeling is that the first day is going to be the key. If Europe can start well, get a few doubts into the American team, get the crowd on the backs for America, then it could be key. So yeah, Luke Donald, the American skipper, is going strong on the first day.
Yeah, and got McIlroy teamed up with Tommy Fleetwood as well, which should be good.
That's right, yeah. Luke Donald's decided to go with that, and he's going with Rahman Hatton first up, which is quite strong from him too. So it all gets underway about 12:10 here, Mike. So it's going to be a thrilling weekend.
Fantastic.
Europe have gone with the purple that they won in Medina. They're going to wear a purple top, so hopefully they'll channel some of the look that they had.
Absolutely right. And we'll hear it all on TalkSport, see it all in the Sun tomorrow. What about Spurs? A £4.5 billion bid coming in from some US tech company.
Yeah, this is an interesting story by my colleague Martin Lipton. Of course, Daniel Levy left Spurs a few weeks ago, and there's potential for this enormous takeover coming in now, which will be even dwarf the 4.25 one that happened down the road at Chelsea a couple of years back when Todd Bowley took over. So yeah, I think it's about 3.3 billion to complete the takeover, with the potential for over $1 billion to sort of strengthen the playing side. So I'm sure Spurs fans will be licking their lips about that.
Absolutely right. Fascinating. We'll be keeping an eye on that one as well. Good to talk to you, Martin. Thanks very much. You did have a great weekend. Martin Blackburn, Northwest Sports Reporter at The Sun. That was 90 minutes in 90 seconds.
90 minutes in 90 seconds from The Sun.
Now, sticking with the world of sport, we're going to talk to Simon Clare, broadcast director at Coral Betting, because believe it or not, as if they haven't taxed enough things, Labour now wants to tax gambling, and about 100 Labour MPs are urging Rachel Reeves, the Chancellor, to do just that, target some kind of gambling levy so that they can fund scrapping the two-child benefit cap. Simon, very good morning to you.
Good morning, mate.
I mean, it's hard to believe they keep finding more things to tax, really, but they're coming after gambling now. What do they want to do?
Well, look, I mean, firstly, the betting sector in Britain is already a heavily taxed sector, heavily regulated. More and more regulation has, been put onto the sector, in the interest of player protection, say for gambling. So, it's already a heavily taxed and regulated sector. But we know that the Labour government is looking for funds. We've got the budget at the end of November, and there has been a tax harmonisation consultation going on, Mike, where they're looking to harmonise the rate on gaming, which is 21%. With sport and racing, which is 15%. Our message is clear, and loads of you're reading lots of noise about this. Our message is clear. If the sector is taxed even more, betting shops will close, jobs will be lost, the funding for horse racing, which is significant, and indeed sports like darts, snooker, rugby league, will be threatened, and the black market will just come in and sweep up and become more and more appealing to consumers. So this won't even raise the revenues, further taxes on betting that the Exchequer and these people lobbying think.
Absolutely right. And there was a day of action, wasn't there? There was a horse racing strike a few weeks ago. Did that have any effect?
I'm not sure it did. Look, I mean, there was the horse racing industry is rightly really concerned that they know that a tax on betting on anything will affect the ability of the betting sector to spend money and support the sport. If shops close, racing gets more money. I mean, a tax increase will make lots of shops unprofitable. There are currently 6,000 shops in Britain. There was 9,000 10 years ago. Regulation has forced the reduction in shops. If there's tax increases, lots of those shops become unprofitable and will close. So it's it's very easy to say, tax betting more, it will deliver loads of money. The reality, when you only start to look at the nuances of that, it just isn't true.
Yeah.
And the racing industry is very concerned. I'm not sure the strike really helped because who is it really striking against? It was more an outcry. Please don't hurt this sport. We share that view.
Absolutely right. Martin, good to talk to you. Simon.
Thanks,
Thank you very much indeed. There we are, the betting tax that they want to put on. Simon Clare, their broadcast director from Coral Betting. Is there nothing that they won't tax? This bleeding government. Absolutely extraordinary. Coming up in the next hour, we're going to speak to Helen Whately, Shadow Secretary of State for Work and Pensions, and James Heal, Deputy Political Editor from The Spectator, will be here. We'll be talking about the digital ID. We'll be talking about a great many other things as well, including Morgan McSweeney, the state that he is in and the state that Labour are in. And what about Keir Starmer and 1 in, 1 out? They've got 6 out and over 1,000 in just in September, 3,000 in just in September alone. This is Talk. Morning Glory, the home of common sense, back after the news.
My message to people smugglers is this. I think smashing the gangs is a deterrent. Smash the gangs. Smash the people smuggling gangs.
People smuggling puns.
He couldn't even smash an avocado for a piece of toast.
Or the people... What would the people...
I think smashing the gangs is a deterrent. Well, it might be if you smashed any, if you found any.
The people smash... the smash...
And he hasn't smashed anything. I mean, literally all he does is he smashes records every sort of couple of weeks, when more and more people come in a period of 24 hours.
Smash the gangs that are running this vile trade.
You're never going to smash the gangs. That's something that basically is impossible. The gangs are like the Hydra. You cut the head off and another 2 grow.
So I did write to ministers and say that I wasn't convinced that smashing the gangs was the right sort of way of thinking about things.
We will smash the gangs that undermine our security.
Keir Starmer has just tweeted 15 minutes ago. He says, "I know you're angry about immigration. I get it. We will smash the people smuggling gangs at source." Maybe I'll just read it all in his accent, shall I?
There is no return to freedom of movement. We have left the EU. I do not accept that prevents us working with other police units here, with prosecutors here, to smash the gangs.
Well, sure, the
smuggling gangs are absolutely quaking in their boots now. Keir Starmer's on their case. Solving this issue, smashing the gangs, is that the impossible dream, Tom?
It really seems beyond him at the minute, I have to say.
We're going to get the evil people smugglers and we're going to smash them and we're going to put them in jail. That will solve the migrant crisis.
Prime Minister Keir Starmer's promise to smash the gangs has resulted in just 5 convictions. Hurrah for operating small boats.
So what he really wants to say is that this policy of smashing the gangs is a total and utter disaster. There isn't a cat in hell's chance that it's going to work. You just can't say it.
It's crap. That's what he's basically saying.
I know you're angry about immigration. I get it. Mark my words, I will take back control of our borders. That means cutting migration, ending the use of asylum hotels and ramping up our efforts to stop small boat crossings.
It's like a parallel universe, the real world, as told by the impressive David Bolt, and Keir Starmer and Rachel Reeves' fantasy world.
We will smash the people smuggling gangs at source.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Morning Glory, 5 minutes past 9. I'm Mike Graham, the final hour of the show. Friday as well, the final day of the week. Well, for some people. Morning Glory podcast out, of course, around about 10:15, 10:30 this morning. In this hour, Helen Whately joins us, Shadow Secretary of State for Work and Pensions. We'll be asking her about that new poll that's out, which has the Tory party only winning 45 seats in the next election, and the Reform Party having a clear majority. Not massive enough to do everything that they want, but certainly enough to transport, probably, Nigel Farage into Downing Street. Benedict Spence will join us as well. We'll be talking about ID cards on the front pages this morning. The Daily Mail says, show us your digital papers. The economy's moribund, socialism rules, police come knocking if you say or think the wrong thing. Now, in an authoritarian new plan that will make Britain even more like East Germany, citizens will be forced to carry ID cards. Absolutely extraordinary stuff. Tony Blair wants to run Gaza. That's quite a surprising story, isn't it? Apparently, according to the Daily Telegraph, he's offered to head an interim government in Gaza on the proviso that power would eventually be handed over to the Palestinian Authority, which controlled the Gaza Strip until 2006 when a small branch of Hamas, a terrorist group, took over. Digital ID card scheme will confirm a right to work. It's all very woolly, though, it seems to be. Kemi Badenoch has said that it's not the right way to go, but we'll find out what Tory party policy actually is. The practicalities of the scheme, according to the iPaper, are still unknown. They will be subject to consultation. They're talking about calling something a Brit card, but it's not actually a card. So why are you calling it a Brit card? It's an app. So you call it Brit app, which sounds like a new band, doesn't it? From Sweden or something. Apparently, we don't know how it's going to work if you haven't got a smartphone or a passport. So how's that going to stop illegal migration then? Because they don't have passports, do they? If they do have passports, they usually throw them into the sea. Let's get a voice note from Shane.
Good morning, Mike. Shane in Lincolnshire. If digital ID cards are forced upon the UK population, how long will it take for a left-wing human rights lawyer and associated judges to argue and win the case that not giving illegal migrants digital ID cards and all associated rights and privileges would be an infringement upon their rights under the ECHR?
It's a very good point, Shane. This is where government policy seems to be all over the place. Ron says anyone who posts a digital ID, a.k.a. the Brit card, will be accused of being against stopping the boats and being patriotic, a mantra Starmer will no doubt gaslight us with. A slightly different front page. They've got the digital ID card on the front, the Sun have, but they've also got a picture of Sacha Baron Cohen, who's moved on, apparently, from his marriage split by dating a model for OnlyFans, 26 years his junior. Great headline. Is it because I is having a midlife crisis? Yeah, maybe. Because he bought a Porsche 911 as well. It's 9:08. This is Morning Glory. Back after this. Nick's in Lincolnshire. Morning, Mike. Fab show. I work for a large company in the UK and we have all been asked to bring in our passports to prove we are all British citizens and have the right to work. Been there 6 years. They have my national insurance number, which surely proves I've got the right to work. Well, it doesn't. Yeah, exactly. I mean, you bring in a passport, you bring in a national insurance number, what else do you need? Maggie says, I said exactly the same yesterday. It's a distraction away from us talking about McSweeney and the missing donations. The announcement was very abrupt, in my opinion. It definitely has that sort of smell about it. It doesn't smell right, this. It doesn't look as if they put any great thought into it. It doesn't seem clear exactly who's going to be using these cards, whether they're even cards. It might actually be an app. How it's actually going to be rolled out, whether it's going to start anytime soon or whether it's over the course of this Parliament, which means probably never. You know, it's all a bit odd. And they've got many, many things that they could want us to be distracted from, including the latest on Morgan McSweeney, who it turns out actually took a £50,000 donation on the very day for this Labour group, Labour Together, on the very day the Electoral Commission told him he has to register every single donation. And he didn't do it. And not only did he not do it, he didn't do it the next day, he didn't do it the day after, he didn't do it for 3 years. Let's talk to Helen Whately, Shadow Secretary of State for Work and Pensions. Helen, very good morning to you.
Good morning.
Now, this digital ID story seems to be absolutely full of holes. I don't believe it for 5 minutes or even for 10 minutes. I don't know whether it's just a kind of a dead cat scenario to try and take us all away from thinking about how useless this government is on immigration and how hopeless and mired in scandal they are with Morgan McSweeney and the Labour Together scenario.
Well, exactly that. I mean, it's been rushed out by Keir Starmer. It's been rushed out as a smokescreen to distract people from all his failures and problems, from his total failure to stop the small boats and control immigration, from the disastrous things that he's doing to our economy and the terrible state of that, his scandals from Angela Rayner, Peter Mandelson, now the Morgan McSweeney stuff, including Keir Starmer's own donations and support that he received from Labour Together, what's going on there. And then this leadership challenge that he's got from Andy Burnham, despite his large majority. He's got all those things going on, so he's clearly rushed us out to try and get us talking about something else.
Yeah, I mean, and what is Tory party policy on ID cards? Because I see Kemi Badenoch saying that this is clearly not going to improve the situation with illegal boat crossings. It's certainly not going to stop illegal migrants coming into the country. But she says it has some merit. I mean, are the Tories in favour of ID cards or not?
Look, we don't support a policy of mandatory ID for people. We wouldn't want to see the kind of society where you might get stopped in the street and ask for your ID, and government having some huge database everybody on in that way. We don't want to see those kind of infringements to people's freedom, so we don't support that. Also, don't think this is going to help at all with the problem of illegal working and illegal immigration. As you were covering earlier, the fact is at the moment an employer already has to ask for your ID and you have to have a national insurance number. So the problem with people working illegally is they're not being asked for ID, not showing ID, and often being paid in cash. This plan for digital ID won't solve that, won't make any difference to that. Actually, it'll just mean more red tape and more admin for law-abiding businesses and law-abiding workers, and just be ignored by the criminals.
Well, that's what it seems to me to be the problem, because at the end of the day, surely those people who do employ people legally already ask them for their national insurance number, already ask them, if necessary, for proof of the right to work with a British passport or something else. And they're not the problem, are they? The problem are the people who don't adhere to the law and who won't adhere to any law.
Exactly that. The problem is people who aren't even requesting ID and often paying less than the minimum wage and employing people illegally and knowingly doing that. And that's why this clearly isn't an answer to illegal immigration. And that's why it's so bizarre, but you can see why, that Keir Starmer's rushed this out and is trying to pretend that it's an answer. He's trying to look like he's doing something about immigration after his stopping the boats, his smashing the GANs policy has failed. So he's trying to look like he's doing something about this, and he's also trying to distract. And actually, I mean, this could backfire on him, because the fact is the Brit card, as it's been called, was proposed by this organisation Labour Together, which is exactly the one that Morgan McSweeney's all tangled up in these questions about donations and the support it gave to Keir Starmer's leadership campaign as well. So actually it just means there's even more questions to answer about that organisation Labour Together.
Well, it does seem as though Labour Together is some kind of sort of shadow form of government, doesn't it? Because it was put together solely to get Keir Starmer into the leadership of Labour Party, to get rid of Jeremy Corbyn by what doesn't look like particularly democratic means, and to then use their organisation as a kind of a policy forum for the government, because, as you say, this whole digital ID thing seems to have come from them in June. They seem to be right at the heart of everything that Keir Starmer's doing, and it would seem to me that would include his ties with Peter Mandelson, his ties with people from the previous Blair administration, and all of that. I mean, the people, I think, should know exactly who's running the country.
Well, exactly that. I mean, parties will get our ideas from all sorts of places, but it's really important to know where the money is coming that supports politicians. So there's a reason why we require people to declare donations, so you can see who people are receiving support to. So, for instance, with Labour, it's important to understand the relationship between Labour and the unions. There's one reason why they put in place so many laws that are pro-union, because the unions are bankrolling loads and loads of Labour MPs in the Labour Party. So you need to know where the money's coming from so you can see what's influencing policy. And Keir Starmer needs to be straight with people about that.
Yeah, I think so. One final one for you, Helen. There's a new poll out today, YouGov poll, MRP in June. Sorry, there was the last one in June has now been superseded by this one. 13,000 people looking at all of the various different constituencies up and down the country. They've got Reform winning not quite an absolute majority, but 311 seats, which certainly is enough to put Nigel Farage into Downing Street. Labour on 144, Lib Dems on 78, Conservatives all the way down at 45.
Well, the polls at the last election said that I was going to lose my seat, and here I am. So I don't always believe everything I see in the polls, but I do take seriously what we're hearing from voters, from the British public. I spend loads of time knocking on doors and speaking to people, and I know how angry people are. First and foremost, they're angry with Labour, but they're still angry with us and from some of the things that happened around the time of the pandemic, and in fact really frustrated that because they were unhappy with us, many of them voted Labour, and then look what they've got, actually much worse, this Labour administration. And I know therefore people are looking to Farage and think, well, maybe we'll try those guys. But actually what people say to me and have these conversations is, we all know Nigel Farage is good at getting the headlines, but he doesn't have the answers. Every single policy announcement he's made so far has completely unravelled within hours, because these problems of government are hard to solve and you need to be serious about it. And that's the thing that we Conservatives are doing in opposition, is working hard on what are the right answers, whether it's on the welfare, where I'm doing lots of work, whether it's on the economy or indeed on immigration, doing the hard work on the policy so that we have the right answers to offer people at the next election. And that is something else that people say to me on the doorstep. They say to me, we know times are tough for you guys, but please hang in there. We want to be able to vote for you when the election
Do they really
comes.
say that to you?
They genuinely really say that, because particularly on the economy, is that everybody knows that the economy is more important than anything else. All our prosperity depends on that, whether you're working in the private sector or indeed the public sector and public services, which are dependent on us having a strong enough economy to be able to afford those things. So the economy is crucial. Farage on the economy, his economics are a complete fantasy. There'd be a disaster for us, while we're the ones who will be responsible and will restore confidence in the UK economy.
I mean, I'll say that the economy was better when the Tories were in, that's for sure. But also, you did put up the highest tax rates since the Second World War when you were in as well, which I think a lot of people were very upset about.
Well, I mean, what happened under us is clearly we took over a financial disaster from Blair and Brown, David Cameron, George Osborne. They worked hard as leaders to bring, to get the economy back in shape, to bring the deficit right down, to get the finances in a much better position. And the country was in a much better financial position when we had the pandemic. And I know that feels to many people like it was a long time ago now, but the fact is it was hugely expensive. We had to spend lots to just keep people's livelihoods going and keep businesses going, keep the economy going. And that means that there are consequences from that, which mean that we live in difficult times. You actually really need a government that can make the tough decisions on public spending, like getting the benefits bill under control.
Yeah.
Reform
but the benefits went out of control under you guys. But benefits were out of control under the Tories as well, Helen. That's the problem. But thank you. Got to leave it there. Helen Whately, Shadow Secretary of State for Work and Pensions. Better get her off College Green before the vultures start swooping. You can hear him there in the background. Let's talk to Benedict Spence, who's a political commentator, of course. Benedict Spence, of course, will be rather like me, I suspect. Not sure about people on the doorstep telling Tory MPs, hang in there, we know it's tough for you guys, but we want you back.
Oh, how cynical of you, Mike. What
I'm not sure.
Think that I'd think that.
I'm not sure anyone has uttered those words to Helen Whately.
I think maybe as a joke, maybe like you and me, they were having a bit of a laugh at the Tories' expense. I mean, look, we understand politicians have to sort of put out their pitch, they have to talk a good game, but come on, guys! Like, nobody's saying that on the doorstep right now.
I mean, they really aren't. I mean, because everybody that I talk to says the Tories are done. You know, they had their chance. They had 14 years. They betrayed Brexit. They didn't get it working properly. We had Boris Johnson in the building this week talking to Harry Cole. You know, and the response was, we don't want Boris Johnson back. Even the people who wanted him back after he first left don't want him back.
Yeah, I mean, that's actually the big thing that I'm finding online when I talk to people in person, actually, is that you have that transition of people who, when we went to Liz Truss and Rishi Sunak, were going, oh, bring back Boris, all is forgiven, are now sat there going, actually, no, in hindsight, that's not who we want at all. And, you know, it's difficult to see actually who from within the Conservatives there actually is who could change things. You know, lots of Conservative activists, I think, like Robert Jenrick. Jenrick seems to say a lot of the things that are similar to what Reform say. Maybe he would have a chance of rescuing them, but that's not exactly a foregone conclusion. And as you pointed out, they're starting from such a low baseline, the Tories, right now, and they have to go around apologising for everything. Because as much as Helen Whately can try and say, well, we inherited a dreadful situation from Tony Blair and Gordon Brown, I mean, people are sort of looking at their watches and going, sorry, how far back are we meant to go?
I know.
How much responsibility are you just casting to the wind?
And quite. And I mean, you know, 14 years, I think, is way beyond the time by which you can blame the previous lot, in the same way that that Starmer's lot are now blaming the Tories still 15, 16 months after being in power, when actually the economy was in a much better state when they inherited it last July than it is now.
I think also the public would respond a lot better to politicians who were just honest and didn't, immediately resort to blaming people. And I mean, I say that knowing full well that Reform is effectively a protest party that, has sort of grown out of being able to blame the mainstream parties. But actually, what you see it doing now, it is starting to come up with policy. It is starting to get out on the front foot. And, that's what people will respond positively to. When you're in the sort of economic death spiral that we're in, you need people who are proactive, not people who are looking back to the past and going, well, everybody else before me was rubbish as well, so you can't blame me. I know, exactly right. And what do you make of this digital ID? Again, my senses and my instinct is that this is just a very highly cobbled together dead cat, which they hope is going to take attention away from the infighting that's going on between Andy Burnham and his supporters and Keir Starmer and his supporters and the whole Morgan McSweeney financial scandal. I mean, I think that there's probably something in that, because I cannot understand why it is that they would rush out something quite so potentially contentious without having given it proper thought, unless actually all the rumours from within Number 10 about Starmer's position being potentially existential were true. I think that this is, as I say, this is a hugely controversial issue. For good reason have politicians been trying to force it through for decades now and it not happen, because they understand actually, I think, how toxic it could end up being. Everybody also knows, A, it's not going to work. We don't even deport people who throw their passports over the side of the small boats. Yeah. What are we going to do because somebody hasn't got their digital ID? Police officers are not going to stop roadmen or dodgy-looking people in the street to say, can you show us your digital ID? It won't be those people that get targeted. It'll be ordinary law-abiding people, and this will simply be another layer of bureaucracy. But the other thing with all of this is, of course, it's potentially another open goal to reform. Yeah. All that Starmer does is says, I'm going to roll this out, and Farage says, we're going to get rid of it the first day we're inside Number 10. Easy, open goal win. They haven't thought this through. Of course they haven't. And the idea that they won't be giving digital ID to people without passports kind of forgets the fact that most illegal migrants arrive here without passports. So, how is that going to stop them from coming and or stop them from getting work? And also, a bit like the drug business, if you're doing something illegal, you tend to know you're doing something illegal. You don't really care that it's illegal. You carry on and do it anyway. Well, that's exactly the point. The suggestion that it'll stop people here working illegally, but they're coming to work, lots of them, in illegal sectors. The whole thing about Deliveroo drivers and stuff like that, they get round the pre-existing laws in order to do it. As I say, I think it's one of those things that they might be hoping members of the public will look at and they go, oh, well, it sounds like a good idea. The people who aren't sort of properly engaged in this will say, oh, well, no, that sounds reasonable. We ought to be able to tell who people are when you're walking down the street. But honestly, I think actually it's more likely to anger people because people are not, in fact, stupid as much as the Labour Party think they are. They will understand this isn't an attack on illegal migrants or people working unlawfully. This is an attack on ordinary working people. Ordinary people, if you call the police, you want to get a job, you want to do almost anything, you are going to be the one that's inconvenienced. You are going to be the one who is asked, where are your papers? Show me your papers.
Yeah.
Not the people for whom, ostensibly this is targeted at.
No, quite. And I must leave you with my favourite story of the day. I thought it was April Fool's when I woke up this morning, front page of the Daily Telegraph. Tony Blair wants to run Gaza. It's too good. It's too good. Stop it. Phenomenal. Mr. Ambassador, you embarrass me with your riches. It's mad.
Oh, honestly. I mean, to be fair, if there's anybody who understands the inner workings of a devastated Middle Eastern strip of territory, it would be Tony Blair. Could he be worse than Hamas? I don't know. Maybe that's the gamble. Everybody else is saying, oh, he couldn't possibly be worse than Hamas.
Well, I mean, as Rafe Heidelmann-Q said to me this morning, it could be a masterstroke. The people of Palestine go, OK, we surrender. Don't bring us Tony Blair. Anything but Tony Blair. We'll let the hostages go, everything.
I can imagine that. Actually, the entire Palestinian people just turning around and saying to Benjamin Netanyahu, we are prepared to give you anything if you get rid of this man.
Exactly right. Superb. Great to see you. Have a good weekend. Benedict Spence there, political commentator, on the most ridiculous story, I think, of the day. This from Phil, who's talking about the burning up of electric cars and such. Good morning, Mike. Loving the programme this morning. You probably don't listen to the traffic news in the breaks. I try to, actually. However, there are regular reports of car fires and road closures. We aren't told if they're electric cars. Well, they're probably not always electric cars, but there's definitely no doubt that there are things which are made and powered by electricity alone, which do seem to go on fire quite a lot. And when they do, it's very hard to put them out. That's the one thing that is the difference between an electric car fire and a regular car fire. Absolutely ridiculous. This from Deborah in Essex. Has Starmer leaked the digital ID proposals to divert media scrutiny from the Electoral Commission report against his staff making big donations? The slew of internal resignations, the leadership challenges and the economy collapsing like dodgy flat-pack furniture. Well, that's a great question, Deborah. We're going to put it to James Hill from The Spectator, who's coming up next. Let's get a voice note from James.
Morning, Mike. Hope you're well. Having a good day. I see the circus is open. Old Kim Jong-un Starmer. I tell you what, when you're grossly, massively unpopular government, to come up with something so unpopular, that is some genius work. I'd really like to know, because you've got the Lib Dems who don't agree with it, the Greens who don't agree with it, and the Conservatives don't agree with it. I'd tell you, he's up to something, mate. The old weasel, he's at it again. Have a great day, my friend. Enjoy your weekend.
James, thank you very much indeed. Well, he's coming up your way by the looks of things. It's all going on in Liverpool this weekend. Andy Burnham, Liverpool's own, Everton supporter, definitely doesn't want to be Prime Minister. But they just keep asking me. He's a bit like the Godfather in Godfather 3, isn't it? I keep trying to get out. They keep dragging me back to Westminster. The point is that he wants to be Prime Minister. He thinks he's really brilliant. Most people in Manchester think he's not really brilliant at all. Reg says this: I have a birth certificate, I have a driving licence, I also have a national insurance number, all accompanied with a passport. What else do I need? I think I've got everything that's required. And Penny from Jersey says, if migrants ditch their passports into the Channel, there must be a whole lot washing up somewhere on the shores, not to mention polluting the environment. Well, very possibly so. Sometimes they may not even have a passport to chuck in the Channel, though, right? Neil in Surrey says, this announcement to introduce digital ID for all adults is a dystopian overreach by this disgustingly corrupt government. The worry is not so much the ID part of it, but the digital part. This will inevitably allow massive databases of every possible piece of our private information to be leaked or sold to nefarious individuals to scam or steal our savings and identity and freedom. General election now. Well, all you need to know about data being stored by the government is Afghanistan. Do you remember what happened there? The Foreign Office had a database of all the people with all the names of those who had been helping British forces in Afghanistan, but unfortunately they leaked it because it got somehow compromised. Somebody hit the wrong button and they emailed it to a load of people that shouldn't have seen it. So then they found out that loads of other people claimed that they had also helped the British government, and it turned out that we then had to bring 150,000 Afghan nationals into Britain under cover of darkness in the middle of the night, which nobody was told about, because they then took out effectively a D notice and a super injunction against anybody finding out that's what they'd done. And you want to give this amazing ability, this ridiculous government and useless civil service, the right to have all of your information on a digital ID so that they can lose it, sell it, you know, send it to the wrong people. You want that? I really don't think it's a good idea. 9:27. Hello, Jezza.
You all right?
I'm good.
You
what are you
had your
doing?
drink?
I've had my drink.
Well, I've been running around.
I'm ready now.
I'm sure you are.
Should we start the show?
No, we can't. Saturday the 15th of November, here's a promise. You will not have seen anything like it. You will get honesty, you will get authenticity, and if we get our way, you might even get a cramming at the top. 3-tier, World of Common Sense with Mike Graham.
And Jeremy Kyle.
In that order.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Morning Glory, 9:31. I'm Mike Graham with you all the way through, of course, until 10 o'clock. James Hill, Deputy Political Editor at The Spectator, is here. Kevin in London says, Mike, I'll have a brick card if it allows us to vote on any future legislation that is proposed by those cretins in Parliament. True democracy. Yeah, somehow I don't think that's what they've got in mind. James, very good morning to you.
Morning, Mike.
Funny old Friday, isn't it? You know, there you are thinking, well, is old Morgan McSweeney going to finally take the fall? Is he going to disappear because of the latest revelations? Is he going to be taken out before Party Conference starts on Sunday? But no, instead, remarkably, we're going to have a brilliant new policy for ID cards for everybody, except there won't be an ID card. It'll be called Brick Card, but it's an app.
Yeah, absolutely. And so, look, this is the thing that's been long been considered, something that Tony Blair, who you were just discussing there, has been lobbying for many, many years. And after a summer of near record level boat arrivals, they've decided that this is the great answer. Of course, this already sparked a huge backlash, people like Nigel Farage and Kerry Bay not complaining it won't do anything, and actually that it's merely going to penalise the law-abiding majority at the expense of the minority who break it. So I think there'll be a big debate that's coming up, but I think it's not going to be one that necessarily develops to Starmer's advantage.
Well, the problem is that one, it's a very unpopular sort of policy. Two, it doesn't appear to be very well thought through. It doesn't appear to have any real, parameters, and it's not imminent. Certainly, it does. They're talking about it maybe over the course of this Parliament, so probably never. And all it seems to me to be is a sort of distraction from all of the other things that are going wrong inside of Downing Street.
Well, there's this big speech today Keir Starmer's doing at 11 o'clock, and it does feel sometimes that, first of all, Starmer can go sort of invisible. We haven't seen much of him since Trump was here, and they're doing the big state visit together. And then second of all, that he hasn't really been very proactive in terms of using the bully pulpit at Number 10 to his advantage. So I think maybe there's a hope that actually, after a series of bad stories, including, of course, the stuff around Morgan McSweeney, this will shape the news agenda. But I also think he's under pressure on his own side because people are saying, look, you've got this difficult conference coming up. You've got Andy Burnham running rings around you. When are you going to go out there and lead? You're the Prime Minister, for goodness sake.
Right. Well, this is the thing. I mean, for most of this week, he's been incredibly kind of invisible, hasn't he? He came out yesterday and made a few statements about handing out cash for regions, and everyone's kind of going, what does that even mean? They spent best part of the last year closing down about one pub a day thanks to the national insurance rise. They now say, oh, we want to save pubs. It's bizarre.
Yeah, I mean, that's a great point, isn't it? Which is that, if you hike taxes to the highest level for 30 years in terms of the tax raising budget last year, and then you complain about the effects and second order consequences of that in terms of hiring and jobs, it all seemed a bit sort of disjointed and unsuccessful. And look, I'm going to be honest, I've looked at the funding for this and it's less than Boris Johnson's levelling up.
Yeah.
Labour say that was a failure. What's going to be different about this? So I think that it's another sort of scheme which Labour will like to think will solve some of the issues, but the reality is that what's driving Reform UK's rise is migration and actually the failure to stop the boats. So I think they can try and deal with the kind of side issues here, but actually it's not going to work.
No, that's the problem. And I mean, as if, to add insult to injury, if you like, and no doubt they'll spin it, and she's made all sorts of nice noises about how pleasurable it was to work with Keir Starmer. But he's lost another director of communications. I mean, it's kind of it's starting to look like less of an accident at the moment, isn't it?
Yeah, well, I think that's 4 in about 14 months.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's sort of World War II bomber command levels of survivability. I mean, I think this is the issue. I think a couple of things. I mean, some of those people, one of those people who left, Paul Ovenden, was because of revelations about what he'd said years ago.
Yeah.
There is some concerns in Whitehall about this new book that's coming out called The Fraud, which one person likened to me to spy capture in the 1980s in terms of any government attempts to try and hush up from being published abroad, etc., which is quite funny. But I think, look, there's clearly an issue here. Some people around Keir Starmer have lost faith in him. And Patrick Maguire, who wrote the authoritative book on him, tweeted yesterday, I think there's only 2 people in the building who actually like Keir Starmer.
Yeah.
And I thought, well, one's his wife, and presumably his kids are the other one.
I'm not even sure his wife likes him, to be honest, because I mean, you only see her every now and again with him. It's almost as though she sort of agrees to do some things and not others. Like she appeared at Chequers, and that was all fine. But for a lot of the stuff that he does, she doesn't appear to be anywhere to be found. And it's not at all clear what his kind of his personal life is really like. I suppose he would say, well, I try to keep my personal life out of it. But unfortunately, if you employ your wife as an occasional piece of eye candy to take to international summits, you can't leave your personal life out of it, can you?
Well, I think that there's definitely something in that, and I think it'll be interesting to see if, we've previously had leaders under pressure have their wives or spouses introduce them or appear alongside them at party conferences. Interesting to see if that will happen this week, because I think Keir Starmer's got to give the speech of his life, given how much discontent there is in the Labour Party about what he's doing. And a year ago, we obviously entered conference season, lots of questions about registrations, donations, and a sort of an underwhelming sense of leadership. And this year, they've got even worse.
Well, that's right. And he's got this other sort of mission today, hasn't he, to reclaim the flag. And you're kind of like, I'm looking at a piece in The Sun today, Britain faces a violent struggle from protesters claiming to be patriots. Keir Starmer will warn today. I mean, he seems to be setting himself on a war footing with all of the people who were at that Unite the UK march last weekend. Now, you can say what you like about the people organising it, but there was an awful lot of people there who were not in any way to be described as far right, who were just simply people who are sick to death of the way that this country has become overrun with illegal migrants and with, the change of direction of the government. And so if he's going to try and make out that only he and his ilk can wave a British flag and be proud to do so, he's going to be in a lot of trouble, isn't he? Because we've seen this morning another new poll out, the YouGov poll, which puts Nigel Farage very much clearly in the driving seat as far as the next Prime Minister goes.
Yeah, absolutely. That poll will send shockwaves, I think, through all of Parliament, because that's the first one done. MRP are the sort of biggest, most comprehensive seat-by-seat predictions, and that was last one was in June. So it shows that over the course of the past 3-4 months or so, Labour has gone backwards at a rate of knots, and Nigel Farage is on course for number 10, albeit in a coalition likely rather than majority. So I think that that's going to very much set the scene. In terms of patriotism, this is something that the Prime Minister struggles with in terms of articulating his vision for the country. He always gets a bit sort of tongue-tied in a way which, for instance, Tony Blair could deliver a plausible explanation about what he thought about flags and symbols, etc. So I'll wait to see what Keir Starmer says. I don't think it'll be a great piece of soaring rhetoric today, kind of Love Actually Hugh Grant style, but I think that he has to be very careful with this stuff, because most people are very... I think people obviously are law-abiding and want to have respect from their neighbours, etc. But equally, they're getting increasingly frustrated that people in Whitehall and Westminster don't share their concerns or seem to have the solutions to tackle them.
Yeah, absolutely right. And finally, back to the old story they don't really want to talk about. And this, I mean, I always hate calling it one in, one out, because it really isn't. I'm told they've added 2 more to the list of people who have left. So that's 6 people out. And from the Channel arrivals in September alone, 3,180 in.
Well, I mean, I think maybe you need Rachel Reeves to look at the figures on that one. I mean, that does not suggest a very healthy bank balance and deficit, as it were. So 6 so far. I look forward to the government minister to spin that on the morning media round.
Yeah, absolutely right. Great to see you, James. Deputy Police Editor at The Spectator with a look at what is going wrong for Keir Starmer on the eve of his first or his second conference as Prime Minister, I guess. He's supposed to be in a position to make the speech of his life. I don't think he could talk his way out of a paper bag. There's one thing that Starmer can't do, and that's speak. Caroline Lowestoft says, Blair running Gaza, he won't go out there, he will probably run it online. He would be too scared to actually work and live in such an awful place. He would sell his grandmother to be relevant. It's a fabulous show. Well, the leaders of Hamas actually don't live in Palestine. They live in Qatar, in Doha, don't they? So maybe we'll go and get a nice gaff there. Margaret in Birmingham says, Tony Blair has been pulling Starmer's strings from day one. And you are right, this is a distraction to make him look good at conference. He can stick this ID where the sun don't shine. This will be his exit from number 10. Absolutely right. And then you'll see whether he's got the right to work anywhere. Mike, if you do not have a smartphone, how can you have a digital ID? Another cunning plan, Baldrick, says Rupert in Sussex. And Michelle says, Mike, they cause a threat like illegal immigration. Then they offer you your safety at the cost of your freedom. Digital ID. This has Blair all over it. It will not stop illegal immigration. It's disgusting. And what happens to data protection? They won't protect us, let alone our data. So many messages coming in on this. I mean, I can't get to them all, but so please, thank you very much for sending them in. We'll try and get to as many of them as we possibly can. Let's get a voice note from Liam.
Good morning, Mike. Liam in Folkestone. For everybody saying that, I see no problem with digital ID. We've already got passports and driving licenses. What's the matter? Well, yeah, but what's to stop them adding certain features, like making you scan it when you go to the garage to fill up your car to check your CO2 emissions, or when you go to the supermarket to buy cigarettes or lottery or booze, or go to the pub. And they can even make you register your social media for social credit scoring, and if you get a low score, you're not allowed to use the train, or you can only go so many miles. It's absolutely terrifying. Anyway, keep up the great work. Have a great weekend. Cheers.
Well, this is the thing. I mean, I was listening yesterday to Peter Cardwell's show on Drive, and he had this human rights lawyer on, Ivan Sampson. We have him on from time to time as well. And he was lauding this, saying it was a great idea, saying that, this would definitely be a deterrent for people who are no longer welcome in this country and who come here illegally. And he said he was against those people coming here illegally, even though I'm sure that occasionally he might represent one or two of them when they're getting deported. But the bottom line is, he said, yeah, it's going to be great, because if you don't have a digital ID and you go and buy some food in Tesco's, they won't let you buy it. Really? Well, I don't want to live in a country that does that. I don't want to live in a society, dystopian society, where you can't go and do whatever you want to do because you don't have a piece of paper or a credit card or some kind of, piece of, app on your phone, information that somebody asks to show you before you're allowed into a shop. That's ridiculous. If you're a company that uses illegal workers, says Roy in Suffolk, like delivery companies, ID cards won't matter because you will still use illegal workers. Well, exactly. That's the point. Coming up, we're going to speak to Councillor Gwen Robinson from Waterlooville, right here on Talk.
across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Morning Glory, 9:44. Here with you for another 15 minutes. Mark Dolan coming in at 10 to take you all the way through till 1 o'clock. Plank of the week tonight from 7, of course. Absolutely stonking show. Very funny one this week, with an awful lot of plankery to count, I have to say. We're going to speak to Councillor Gwen Robinson very shortly, a Conservative from Waterlooville. How about this from Rachel? It says, I'm still fuming, absolutely livid. Chagos Islands, recognising Palestine, now ID cards. Why are major issues never debated in Parliament anymore and decisions made during recess? This isn't democracy, this is outrageous. I think I take your point on that one. And how about this one from somebody who doesn't give a name? Do you think travellers will have ID cards? How about the homeless with ID cards? And last of all, how can the illegals get ID cards without ID? It's funny how you need ID to get an ID card. Well, that's right. Now, it's Gaff Prone Friday. We've played a few out already. We played quite a few of Starmer's ones, actually, which are going out as official videos. Here's Jack Elson, the political editor of The Sun. I wrote that piece in the afternoon, and I had to sort
of... I was just getting another call to the client. I need to turn my camera around the right way.
That's starting to confuse me. You're not in number 10, are you?
Right, there we go.
No, that's good. That's it. That's
right,
it.
Fantastic.
It's good, man. That can make you a little bit dizzy if you watch that a couple of times, especially at high speed. Anyway, listen, not to worry. Jack's a great man. He'll be back, I'm sure, later on this afternoon, all over the place, covering for what's going on in the Labour government. Labour conference taking place from Sunday, and we'll be bringing you all of that. Let's talk to Councillor Gwen Robinson, though, Conservative from Waterlooville. Robert Jenrick, the former immigration minister in the Tory party, and the man who narrowly lost to Kerry Badenoch for leader of the Conservative Party. He gave an interview this week to Kate Ferguson from The Sun on Sunday for her new show, Kate's Dates. Have a look at this.
I think that people are sick of seeing, the Gaza flag being put up, a lamppost, a Pakistan flag. A couple of weeks ago, I went down the road from here in Newark and put up Union flags on lampposts for a couple of hours, and car after car, HGV drivers, van drivers were honking their horns. They were saying, good for you. People want us to feel pride in our country, and in order to do that, you have got to integrate people properly and expect that everyone who comes into our country cherishes our history and our heritage and our culture.
Should there be this ban of putting up the kind of the Palestine flag then in public buildings or in the...
Well, look, I don't want foreign flags on public buildings.
Yeah.
I don't want to see them on the streets.
That's Kate Ferguson, the political editor of The Sun on Sunday, with her new show, Kate's Dates. Robert Jenrick, the first guy to be on it, of course. Let's talk to Gwen Robinson now, because I think she might agree with Robert Jenrick on Palestinian flags. Gwen, very good morning to you.
Good morning, Mike.
Good to see you. He's got a point, hasn't he, Robert Jenrick? I mean, there's this big to-do this weekend because Keir Starmer's going to supposedly reclaim our national flag. I'm not sure who he's reclaiming it from. But he doesn't have much to say about Palestinian flags and Pakistani flags, does he?
No, he doesn't. But it's funny how he seems to be chopping and changing, to suit himself as he reads the polls. But I totally agree with Robert. We are British. We are proud to be British. One of the big issues I have, Mike, is that, people come here because they say they want a better life. Yeah. And then suddenly they start to want to change things, and they want to try and, push their cultures forward and push us with our very, very rich history and heritage, back. I have a real problem with that.
Yes, I think so. Because when we saw Donald Trump here just the other week at Windsor, enjoying the pageantry of the royal family and Windsor Castle and the history and the marching bands and then checkers and all of the history around that, you realise, I was quite encouraged by seeing all of that, because you felt like that's the Britain that I know, that's the Britain that I grew up in, that's the Britain that I cherish, And we don't see enough of that, I don't think.
No, let's be honest. Nobody does pomp and pageantry better than we do.
Yeah.
I look at America and they seem very proud outside homes to have their stars and stripes and everything else. And yet suddenly here we are now. Who is it Mike, who is it that's objecting to us flying our flags, putting them on the lampposts to say, just remember where we are and what we stand for. We've been one of the most welcoming countries, and that's now being abused. Yeah. And I think people are, they're at a point now where they're just trying to remind people that this is Britain and that we will fly our flags. I know for our county council, they've made it very clear that they will, unless the flags that are put on lampposts are, pose a danger to the public, they're going to leave them there, which I really applaud them for that.
Yes, and that's as it should be. But of course you'll get, and forgive me for saying this, council jobsworths who will claim that any number of things are dangerous and therefore have to be removed, health and safety and all the rest of it. I mean, we saw one councillor this week, a Labour councillor, I think he was somewhere in the Midlands, calling people who wanted to put flags up extremists and nonces and racists. And it was quite extraordinary that this is obviously a belief that exists in the Labour Party, that there's something wrong with you if you want to be patriotic.
But this term now, you're an extremist, it's being used actually to silence people. Now, I was out recently, knocking on doors, just saying hello to people, looking at local issues. And goodness me, the amount of people that started the conversation with me as, I'm not a racist. Now, how sad is it we've now got to this point where, and they're not racist. What they are is they're resentful. They resent that we're supposed to now take a big step back and allow other people to dictate what we can and cannot do.
Right, exactly right. And the last time we spoke to you, I think, it was around at the time there had been some demonstrations outside migrant hotels in Waterlooville. What's the situation currently with that?
At the moment, the situation, so the Home Office decided they would not use that building. I was very disappointed with the Labour leader's deputation to the Home Office, basically, and what he has said very publicly is that he is prepared to welcome these migrants and he wants them in the centre of, communities so that we can support them. I mean, I think he's not really reading the room. I don't think he's actually paying attention to the issues that this whole thing about illegal migrants and where they're located is actually, posing the problems.
Yeah, absolutely right. And I mean, unfortunately, because of the nature of things, they'll just sort of move to another spot, won't they? They'll try and go, oh, okay, well, we haven't won that one, but we'll move somewhere else, and you have to keep chasing them out of the territory, don't you?
Yeah. I mean, there is this dispersal programme, which I've been aware of for over 2 years. When I was the portfolio holder, I was very aware of it, but I still feel that, you have to look at the bigger picture and you do have to look at community cohesion. And a lot of people, we've got people in Waterlooville, they're really struggling, Mike, to pay their bills. So I'm very happy to see flags, and we have got flags that have been flying in Waterlooville, the George Cross, St George's flag, and mind you, the other day I drove down where there had been some round a roundabout and they've all disappeared.
Yeah. And who's taking them away?
Absolutely. Well, I'm going to assume that it's a member of the public. I mean, I have had emails from people objecting, and I've just informed them that, number one, you don't need planning permission from the local authority to put up a flagpole in your garden, and the county council have said, unless they're a danger, we're leaving them. So I'm going to assume from that it's somebody that is a sympathiser to everybody else in the world.
Yeah. Absolutely right. Gwen, good to talk to you. Thank you very much indeed. Gwen Robinson, a councillor from Waterlooville, Conservative, saying that she agrees with Robert Jenrick about the flying of foreign flags. It's all very well saying that you support flying the British flag, but surely there ought to be somebody in the Labour government saying, actually, we'd rather you didn't start flying loads of foreign flags around the place because that's not our country. You don't go to Pakistan and expect to see a load of Union Jacks being flown, do you? Or even in Palestine. Now recognised, of course, as a state by Keir Starmer. Absolutely mad. The real danger is that if Reform get anywhere near forming a government, the Rainbow Coalition of parties on the left will block them. Even unlikely bedfellows will do anything to stop them, says Proud in Cambridge. Well, that's what Ed Davey said, wasn't it? And Ian says, I'm not sure why Labour insist on having their conference here in Liverpool, because they are hated here as much as anywhere else in the country. Well, I know they are. And they'll probably try and make out that they're the party of the working man, working people of this country. But of course they're not. They really aren't. Coming up, Mark Dolan at 10 o'clock. It's 9:54.
Some breaking news this morning revealed that under the Terrorist Act, 242 people were arrested in the year to June of this year.
Something you can indulge in as to all the people who aren't going to prison because, well, there's no prison spaces.
So this is a talk exclusive we've been looking at.
I said, you take these cuffs off me and speak to me like a human being rather than a common criminal.
You're just left wondering, does these people who lead us actually hate Britain? Yeah. Do they not love our country and everything that we've stood for?
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Morning Glory, 9:57. I'm Mike Graham, just minutes away from Mark Dolan, who's just walked in wearing a very snazzy-looking tie. Thank you very much indeed for coming in early.
Michael, I cannot compete with your sartorial elegance.
Very kind.
But I'm happy to be your deputiser today, and, you know, we're going to pick up the baton at 10. There's only one story in town, and it's the digital ID, which is the path to tyranny and the road to hell.
Yes, it is both of those things. I'll tell you what is not the road to hell, and that is Plank of the Week, and that comes up this evening at 7 p.m. You don't want to miss it. It's an absolute belter. Have a look at this.
He's obsessed with Nigel Farage.
Yeah, he is.
Yeah,
we've also got the Farage clip. Is it Farage derangement syndrome? Here we go.
Farage, 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 Nigel Farage. Farage, Farage is Britain. Farage is Britain. Farage is Britain.
He's got the air of a crap headmaster that thinks he's popular and all the kids hate
funny.
him.
And funny.
Yeah.
And
irrelevant.
Yeah. Unbelievable stuff. And finally, the world of common sense live. Who would want to miss this? This is November the 15th. Myself and Jeremy Kyle, Shepherd's Bush Empire. Don't miss it.
Mikey.
Yeah.
How exciting is this?
Very exciting. 15th of November, Shepherd's Bush Empire, right here. It's me, Mike Graham. It's him, Jeremy Kyle. And we are going to be here live with the world of common sense.
Honesty, authenticity, best night of your life. Look at this amazing theatre, Mikey. Have a look.
Yeah.
You and me, kidder.
Fantastic.
Who'd have thought it?
There's a few right away at the back of the top if you want them. But,
by the way, an important question.
Yes.
Will there be alcohol?
Of course.
Because that's when we get the truth bombs from MG.
Yeah, of course.